You open your eyes to the sound of coughing. Not polite modern coughing, wet, racking, chest-deep spasms that sound like someone is trying to lose a lung. The air smells like mud, smoke, and something faintly rotten. For a moment, you're disoriented. You're lying on something that crunches when you shift. Not leaves, not hay, straw, coarse, sharp, poking through the threadbare fabric of the blanket that's supposed to keep you warm but doesn't. You're cold. You're always cold now. You lift your head and immediately regret it. Your neck is stiff. Your back is a knot of tension. Every muscle hurts. Something itches. Your scalp, your armpits, your crotch, lice. You didn't know what they really felt like until a week ago. Now you know too well. They crawl over you like tiny secrets. It takes a second to remember where you are. Then it hits you. You're in a tent, or maybe a shack. Hard to tell. The walls are canvas, pulled tight over a wooden frame that groans when the wind hits it. There's no insulation. The ground beneath you is dirt, mud, if it rained last night. And it probably did. You're not in your bed. You're not at home. You're in an army camp. And you've just woken up in the middle of the American Civil War. Your boots are gone. You panic briefly before remembering. You took them off last night to keep your feet from freezing, then tucked them under your bedroll like everyone told you. If you don't, someone else will take them. There's no morality in the morning chill, just desperation and cold toes. You sit up slowly. Your joints crack like old wood. You're 23, maybe 28, but your body feels twice that. You slept in your clothes because everyone does. Your uniform is stiff with sweat and dirt. The colour, once a proud blue or grey, is now a dull, tired smear of whatever the ground gave it. You smell like unwashed wool and fear. Around you, the camp is waking up if it ever slept at all. A man groans near your head. Another is throwing up just outside the tent, hacking up bile like it owes him money. Someone else mutters a prayer. It doesn't help. Nothing helps. The war has its own rhythm now, and you're just trying not to miss a beat. You stand. Your legs shake. You slept maybe 4 hours, maybe less. You've stopped counting. There's no point. Sleep isn't rest out here. It's just a pause in the suffering. You pull on your boots, which are damp and starting to split at the seams. You don't have socks. You had a pair last week. Now one has a hole. The other was lost in the mud. Or maybe someone took it. Doesn't matter. You step outside into the grey dawn. The air bites your skin. The camp is a mess of tents, fires, and movement. Men huddle around smoking kindling, trying to coax heat out of damp wood. The smoke stings your eyes. Somewhere, a mule brays. Somewhere else, someone is crying. You pretend not to notice. Everyone pretends. You're hungry. You're always hungry. You reach into your coat and pull out your breakfast, a piece of hardtack. It looks like a cracker, if a cracker had the soul of a brick. It's covered in little holes and faintly speckled with something dark. You don't want to look too closely. Could be mold, could be weevils. You knock it on your knee like a piece of firewood. If it doesn't shatter, it's still good. You take a bite. It doesn't crunch. It cracks. You chew slowly, carefully, because the last time you bit down too hard, you chipped a tooth, and there's no dentist here. Just a man with pliers and bad breath. The hardtack tastes like sawdust, regret, and a hint of mildew. You chew until your jaw aches. You're not eating for flavor. You're eating because if you don't, you'll collapse. Someone hands you a cup. It's metal, dented. The handle is bent. Inside is something hot and black. Coffee, technically, more like mud with ambitions. It's been boiled in a tin can that used to hold lard. Now it holds bitterness and a floating hair you pretend not to see. You sip. It's scalding. Your lips burn. You drink anyway. You need the heat more than you fear the taste. Around the fire, the other men are silent. No one makes small talk in the morning. You all know what the day might bring. A march, a drill, a skirmish, or worse. You've seen what worse looks like. You still smell it in your dreams. A man coughs up something red. He wipes it away and mutters that it's nothing. You all nod like you believe him, like he'll still be here tomorrow. Maybe he will. Maybe he'll be wrapped in a blanket and buried behind the camp by nightfall. The war doesn't care how many friends you lose. It just keeps going. A bugle sounds somewhere off in the distance, not a clean, polished sound like in the movies. This one's a little off-key. The man playing it is missing part of his lip. Still, it cuts through the camp like a knife. Time to move. You down the last of the coffee and it burns your throat. You feel a little more alive, just enough to walk. You put the tin back in your coat pocket. Someone else will use it later. Nothing is truly yours out here. Not your food, not your warmth, not even your name, if someone else forgets it after you die. You look down at your uniform again. There's a tear near your knee. The stitching is coming loose. You'll patch it later, or maybe not. You've patched it 5 times already. The cloth isn't meant to last. Neither are you. Someone shouts your name. Roll call. You join the others. A crooked line of hollow-eyed men, some still tying their shoes, some limping, one barefoot. You recognize faces, sort of, but names blur. Everyone looks the same after a while, tired, dirty, and half here. The officer walks by, clipboard in hand, calling out names. You answer when yours comes. Not because you want to, because you have to, because not answering means questions. Questions mean suspicion. Suspicion means punishment. Maybe extra duty. Maybe worse. Another man doesn't answer. They find him behind a tent, curled up like a child, fevered and mumbling. They carry him away. You don't ask where. You know. You've seen the place. Rows of bodies wrapped in canvas, waiting for someone to care. No headstones. Just shallow graves and fading names. You stand at attention. You try not to sway. Your feet hurt. Your stomach aches. Your head is pounding. But you're still standing. That's something. The officer finishes the roll and nods. The group breaks apart. Men shuffle to their duties. Fires are rekindled, weapons cleaned, orders passed down. The war machine stirs to life once more. You rub your hands together, trying to chase away the cold. It doesn't work. You think about the day ahead, but only vaguely. You don't plan anymore. You just follow. You do what you're told, one foot in front of the other, one command at a time. Thinking too far ahead only hurts. A new recruit stumbles past you. He's young, too young. His coat is too big, his eyes too wide. He's asking someone where to get water. Someone else tells him to dig a new latrine. He nods, confused. He doesn't know yet. He will. You head toward the edge of the camp. You've got a few minutes before your assignment starts. You want to find a quiet spot, maybe relieve yourself, maybe just breathe. You pass a pile of ash where a fire used to be. There's a boot sticking out of it. You don't ask. You reach the tree line. The sun is rising now. Pale gold light filters through skeletal branches. It should be beautiful, but all you feel is dread. Another day, another set of orders, another chance to die. You take a deep breath. The air smells like gunpowder and smoke. Somewhere, someone is already loading their rifle. Somewhere else, a letter home is being written by shaking hands. You don't write anymore. You ran out of paper, ran out of things to say. Your family wouldn't understand anyway. They still think this war is about glory. You turn back toward the camp. Your stomach growls again, but you ignore it. There's no more food, not until tonight. Maybe. You square your shoulders, you walk. The day has just begun, and you're already tired. Your body isn't yours anymore. It belongs to the war now, or maybe to the mud, or to the lice, or to whatever is festering beneath your collar that you're too afraid to look at in the dark. You wake up and it creaks. Your joints snap like old rope. Your muscles ache with the dull persistence of someone who's been lifting, dragging, marching, squatting, shivering for weeks. You've started to forget what your own skin looks like under all the grime. Bathing is a fantasy. You haven't truly washed in weeks. Maybe a splash of cold creek water here and there. Maybe a desperate rub down with a damp rag when the smell of your own body becomes unbearable. Soap, a memory, warm water, a joke. Privacy doesn't exist. The only moment you're alone is when you crawl into your tent, and even then the lice come with you. You stink. You stink like fire and old meat. Like mildew and unwashed wool, like your own fear baked into your uniform and exhaled with every breath. Your boots reek of rot, your feet are raw, blistered, sometimes bleeding. The lining of your trousers is stained from constant sweating, from sitting in mud, from everything your body no longer has the strength to hide. You've seen men cry at the smell of themselves. You've seen them laugh too. Laugh because if they don't, they'll break. Your fingernails are black, even when you clean them. Your teeth hurt. The molar on the left side throbs every time you chew. Your gums bleed when you brush, if you brush. Some men chew sticks. Others just rinse with whiskey, if they're lucky enough to have some. You ran out of anything resembling dental care months ago. Your breath smells like old coffee and infection. You touch your jaw sometimes, worried it's swelling. It is. Food doesn't help. You eat what you're given. When you're given anything, salt pork that glistens with fat, sticky and grey, packed in barrels that smell like death. Hardtack that sometimes moves when you break it open. Weevils. You pick them out. Or you don't. They say they're extra protein. The joke stopped being funny a long time ago. Beans if you're lucky. Fatty water that they call stew if you're blessed. Half the time your stomach rebels anyway. You vomit or worse. Diarrhea is constant. Everyone has it. You hear it in the woods, behind tents, in ditches hastily dug and poorly covered. Men squat with one hand on a tree and the other clutching their stomachs like it's trying to escape. You wipe with leaves, or your sleeve, or nothing. There's no toilet paper, there's no privacy, there's no end to it. You lose weight without meaning to. Your belly cramps, your knees tremble. You drink water and pray it won't make it worse. But the water doesn't care. It comes from barrels that are barely clean, from streams that run near where the horses piss and the men relieve themselves. You've watched someone fill a canteen just feet downstream from a corpse. He shrugged. Tastes better than the coffee, he said. Then he drank. Sometimes they boil it, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't have time. Dysentery spreads like wind. One man gets sick, then 3, then 10. Suddenly the whole camp smells like death. The moans echo through the night. You lie awake and listen to someone else fall apart, and you wonder if it'll be your turn next. You wonder if it already is. Your bowels betray you. Your skin breaks open. Insect bites swell. Scratches fester. A blister becomes a wound. A wound becomes something worse. You don't know the word for it, but it smells wrong and it weeps and you don't want anyone to see it. Not because you're shy, but because you're afraid of what it means. You've seen men marched off to the medical tent with wounds like that. Most don't come back. There's no such thing as a doctor. There's a surgeon, maybe. A man with a dirty coat and a hacksaw. He knows how to cut off legs and dig out bullets. He does not have antibiotics. No one does. You've heard of them, maybe. The idea, a future thing, not for you. If your body gives up, you rot. If you're lucky, they wrap you in a sheet. If not, the flies get you first. Scurvy is quiet but cruel. Your teeth feel loose. Your gums swell. You wake up with blood in your mouth. You chew salt pork and hardtack and wish for fruit. Just one orange. Just one bite of something that isn't salted, canned or crusted with whatever that green stuff is. You don't know what it is. You stopped asking. Half your company is coughing, not the polite kind, the kind that shakes the whole chest, that doubles a man over, that leaves blood on a handkerchief or a sleeve if he stopped pretending to care. You hear it at night, a chorus of lungs giving out. Some call it consumption, others call it the Red Death. You don't call it anything. You just try to stay out of its way. You're not sick yet, but your body's failing in quieter ways. You wake up exhausted. You drag yourself through the day like your legs belong to someone else. Your fingers go numb in the cold. Your lips crack. Your eyes burn. You're always thirsty, always hungry, always sore, always 5 minutes from breaking. Some men try to fix it. They trade tobacco for soap. They sew patches into their uniforms, try to keep clean, boil their clothes. But the lice come back. The dirt never really leaves. You sweat into your collar, into your armpits, into your boots. It sinks in. Your body becomes something else, something less human, more animal. You see it in others, in the way their eyes sink into their faces, in how their cheeks hollow. Their movements become slow, cautious. Every step is measured, not because they're thoughtful, but because they're trying not to split open somewhere. No one talks about the sores, the peeling skin, the infections, but they're there. They're on everyone, hidden beneath layers of wool and shame. You sit by the fire and try to warm your hands, but your fingers don't feel anything. The fire smokes more than it burns. Someone's coughing again. Someone else is puking behind a tree. A third is rubbing his knee like it owes him an apology. You sit with your legs pulled close, trying to keep the heat in, trying to feel human again. You fail. At night, you dream of bathtubs, Not riches, not medals, just a tub, warm water, clean soap. You dream of soft clothes, of cotton sheets, of a toothbrush, of toothpaste, and you wake up covered in cold sweat with a spider crawling across your face. You flick it away and go back to sleep, or you try. Your body itches, it burns, it cries, but you don't let it stop. You don't have the luxury. You keep moving because the alternative is worse. Stopping means giving in. Giving in means going under. You've seen what happens to the ones who stop. They lie down and don't get up. The war changes you, not just in your mind, but in your flesh. You walk differently now. You breathe with a rasp. Your shoulders hunch. You squint even when there's no sun. Your hands shake, just a little when you're still. Your fingernails grow crooked, your toenails crack. Your body, once your own, is now something worn, something used, and yet you keep going because everyone else does, because the man beside you is worse off and he's still standing, because the sergeant will notice if you fall behind, because you're afraid of the medics, afraid of being left, afraid of dying somewhere without anyone knowing your name. Afraid of how easy it is to vanish. You used to recognize yourself in the mirror. Now you barely recognize your hands. They're scarred, calloused. One fingernail is black from a smashed knuckle weeks ago. You never felt it properly heal. Your face feels sunken. Your eyes are red. Your hair's greasy, tangled, thinning maybe. You don't look anymore. You don't want to. Some days you feel like a ghost. Some days you feel like a corpse, still waiting for the right time to lie down. And some days you feel nothing at all, just numbness, just the cold steel of your rifle, the weight of your gear, the ache of your bones. But you keep moving because there's no other choice, because this body, broken as it is, still works just enough to march, just enough to fire, just enough to stay alive, for now. The order comes before you finish your second mouthful of scorched coffee, a shout, a trumpet, boots scrambling, curses muttered under breath, marching orders. Again, you don't ask where to or why. No one does. You just stand, spine stiff despite the fatigue, shoulders already bracing for the weight you can't afford to carry, but have no choice in bearing. Your knapsack is heavy, always has been. 40 pounds, give or take, depending on what you've lost or traded along the way. A change of socks if you're lucky, a blanket that's more whole than fabric, a tin plate, a Bible if you haven't thrown it out yet. A letter from someone back home, smeared and crumpled and barely legible after the last thunderstorm soaked everything you owned. You think about tossing the whole thing out sometimes, lightening the load, but you don't. Not because you're sentimental, because it's the only thing left that still smells a little like the world before this one. Then there's your rifle. 10 more pounds of iron and wood and responsibility. The barrel is cold against your shoulder, the strap digging into flesh already raw from yesterday's march. You shift it back and forth, trying to find a position that hurts less. You don't succeed. There is no position that hurts less, only ones that hurt different. You step out onto the road, if you can call it that. No cobblestones, no gravel, just a mess of earth and regret, flattened by the boots of 1,000 others before you. It might be mud, might be dust, might be frozen dirt with rocks that bite through your soles like teeth. Your shoes are more whole than leather now. You tied the left one together with twine last week. The right one's heel flaps with every step like it's mocking you. The line stretches ahead, a trail of blue or grey, heads bowed, packs swaying, boots thudding in unison, the rhythm of suffering. The air is already thick. If it's summer, it's heat like a wet wool blanket over your head. If it's winter, it's wind that cuts through your coat like you're walking naked. There's no in-between, no mercy from the sky. Just weather that doesn't care how tired you are. You march because you're told to. You march because stopping means punishment. You march because you're afraid to fall behind. The officers ride on horseback. They don't feel the blisters. They don't feel the grit in their socks, the rub of canvas against sunburned skin, the creeping pain in knees that never seem to rest. They shout commands from above while you trudge below, tasting your own sweat and biting your own tongue. No one talks. Not really. Maybe a muttered joke now and then. Mostly it's silence. Just the sound of feet, laboured breathing, and the occasional grunt of someone stumbling on a root or tripping into a pothole carved by wagon wheels and weather. If someone falls, they get up. If they don't, you keep walking. There's no time to help. You want to help. You look back, but you keep walking. By noon, your socks are soaked through, with sweat, with water from a stream you waded through without stopping, or maybe with blood. You don't check. You can feel the hot sting of a blister forming under your heel, right where the leather splits. You shift your weight. Doesn't help. The pain follows you like a shadow. The canteen at your hip is already half empty. You took careful sips in the morning, trying to stretch it, but you're sweating it out faster than you can swallow. Your lips are dry. Your tongue sticks to the roof of your mouth. You pass a creek at some point, but it's off limits. Contaminated, they say, so you march past it, staring at the water like it's a lover you're not allowed to touch. A few men sneak drinks anyway. One does it right in front of the officer. He gets a slap to the head with the flat of a sword and a threat of extra duty. But he drinks anyway. You don't blame him. Your shoulders are aching. Your back throbs. The straps from your knapsack have worn grooves into your skin. You tried padding them with cloth once. The cloth rubbed away. Then you tried a folded rag. That gave you a rash. Now you just bear it. One of the men near you has wrapped his belt around his chest to take some pressure off his shoulders. He walks hunched forward like a man permanently bowing to something no one else can see. By mid-afternoon, the pace slows. Not officially, just naturally. No one says it, but everyone's dragging. The line gets messy. Spacing falters. Some limp. One man near the back starts coughing and doesn't stop. You glance over. His face is pale, lips cracked. He stumbles, catches himself, spits something red into the dirt. He keeps walking. So do you. You lose track of time. The sun shifts in the sky, but you don't feel it anymore. You're marching on instinct now. Your legs move because they remember how. Your feet are numb. That's good. Numb means you can't feel the pain anymore. Numb means you can make it a little farther. A horse trots past. An officer with polished boots and a polished saber barks something about keeping formation. You nod. No one responds. He's clean. You notice that. His uniform's clean. You hate him a little for it. Then you look away. You can't afford to waste energy on hate. Sometimes you sing. Not today. No one has the breath. But on other days, someone starts humming, and then a tune catches. And suddenly the line becomes a moving chorus of tired voices clinging to some half-remembered song from home. You've sung about whiskey, about mothers, about freedom, about dying. Today, there's no song, just the scrape of leather on dirt and the low animal sounds of endurance. By late afternoon, your hands are shaking, not from cold, from exhaustion, from hunger. You haven't eaten since morning. Your stomach growls like something trapped. You reach into your pocket and find a piece of jerky, hard as wood. You suck on it. Your teeth can't handle the chewing right now, but the salt helps, gives you something to taste that isn't your own dried spit. The man ahead of you stumbles. He drops his rifle, doesn't pick it up. Someone behind you kicks it toward him. He grabs it without looking, cradles it like a child, and keeps going. His face is blank. His eyes aren't here anymore. At some point, someone throws up. You hear it more than see it. A wet, violent retch that splashes into the dirt. A grunt. Then footsteps resume. That's all. No one helps. No one stops. He gets back in line or he's left behind. That's the rule. March or die. That's not a slogan. It's not painted on a banner. It's just the truth. The sun starts to dip. You squint against the glare. The horizon looks no closer. You're not sure if you've gone 5 miles or 15. You stopped counting around the time your left foot went numb and your right knee started making that clicking sound. Someone ahead says camp's near. You don't believe them. They said the same thing yesterday. You keep walking. The shadows grow longer. The air gets cooler. That's good. Your shirt is soaked. The sweat starts to chill you, and you shiver even as your body steams. Eventually, hours later or maybe years, you see tents or smoke or just the outline of something that means stopping. The pace quickens a little, like horses smelling the stable, like men sensing relief just out of reach. You lift your legs a little higher, your spine straightens a little. You know it won't last, but for a moment, hope pulls you forward. When you stop, it's sudden. One word from an officer, one sharp command. The line halts. You nearly stumble into the man in front of you. Your legs twitch. They don't understand that the movement is over. Not yet. You drop your pack, carefully, slowly, like setting down a sleeping child. Your shoulders scream in relief. You unstrap your rifle, lean it against your leg and stretch your fingers. They don't respond, just ache. Someone hands you a cup of water. It's warm. tastes like tin. You drink it like it's gold. Someone else is building a fire. Another is cursing about missing beans. Another is trying to find a spot to piss that isn't already occupied by flies and footprints. You sit or fall or collapse. You're not sure which. Your back hits the earth. It's hard. It's cold. But you've never felt anything better. You made it. Today. You're awake before dawn again, not because you want to be, but because someone just kicked your boot and told you to move. You're sore, you're cold, you're hungry, and none of that matters because today isn't for marching. Today is for drilling, which in many ways is worse. The sergeant starts yelling before the sun even clears the trees. You don't know his name, you're not supposed to. He's not here to be liked. He's here to turn you into a weapon, and he does it with a mouthful of tobacco and the volume of a thunderstorm. His voice is rough enough to sand paint off a barn and sharp enough to cut through bone. You try not to look directly at him, because even his glare feels like a punishment. He lines you up in rows. Straight lines, he barks. You think you're standing straight until he stomps over and shoves your shoulder 3 inches to the left. Then he does the same to the man beside you, and the next one, and the next. No one escapes. Everyone is crooked. Everyone is wrong. That's the first lesson of drill. You're never right, and if you think you are, you're about to find out otherwise. He makes you stand at attention, chin up, shoulders back, chest out. You haven't stood like this since you were a kid trying to impress your father. Now you do it to avoid being screamed at, or worse. The guy next to you slouches slightly, and within seconds the sergeant is in his face, nose to nose, barking words that don't even sound like English. The man flinches but doesn't move. That's lesson 2. Don't move unless you're told to, even if you're shaking, even if your foot falls asleep, even if a bee lands on your neck. You wait. Then come the commands. Present arms, shoulder arms, order arms, fix bayonets, remove bayonets, about face, right face, left face, every word a trap, every movement a potential disaster. You practiced yesterday and the day before and the day before that, but your body still forgets. You mix up the steps. You lift the rifle too slow, too fast, at the wrong angle. The sergeant notices. He always notices. And now he's in your face, spitting curses with breath that smells like coffee and fury. You repeat the move. You do it better, but not well. Never well enough. He walks away, muttering, and you don't breathe until he's yelling at someone else. The man 2 rows down drops his rifle. It hits the ground with a sickening clatter. The entire formation goes silent. The sergeant storms over and makes him do it again and again and again. The man's hands are bleeding by the end, but he doesn't drop it a second time. Hours pass. The sun rises. Your shoulders ache from holding the rifle. Your spine burns from standing stiff. Your brain is a fog of repeated commands and silent panic. You want to get it right. You want to be invisible. The perfect soldier is the one the sergeant doesn't notice. Then it's loading drills. Your rifle is a muzzle loader, a smoothbore musket, or a rifled Springfield, depending on what they gave you. It doesn't matter. It's a complicated beast. And you're supposed to load and fire it in under 20 seconds, maybe faster. You're handed paper cartridges, powder wrapped in thin paper with a lead ball inside. You tear the top with your teeth, pour the powder into the barrel, then the ball, then ram it all down with a metal rod you keep slotted beneath the barrel. The process is simple when you're dry, rested, calm, alone. You are none of those things. You fumble the cartridge. It rips too early. Powder spills on your hand. The sergeant sees it. He's already shouting. You try to recover. Your hands are trembling. You jam the bullet down the barrel and can't remember if you already put in the powder. You pretend you did. You move on. You're told to aim. You raise the rifle, but it's heavy. Your arm's unsteady. The butt wobbles against your shoulder. The barrel wavers in the air like a blind man's cane. You squeeze the trigger, but there's no flint, no spark, no charge. It's just a drill. You pull anyway. Click. Next round. Again, again, again. By midday, your hands are black with powder. Your lips are dry. You've tasted gunpowder so many times you're starting to like it. Your shoulder is bruised from where the rifle kicks back. You haven't even fired live ammo yet. That comes later maybe, or maybe not. The point isn't to shoot. The point is to do it perfectly, mechanically, thoughtlessly. To make every action second nature so that when bullets are flying and people are screaming, your hands keep moving even when your brain is begging to stop. You break for food. If you're lucky, it's beans. If you're not, it's hardtack. You eat standing up because you're not supposed to rest. Not really. Your feet still hurt from the last march. Your boots are stiff. Your socks are damp. You wiggle your toes and feel the torn blisters rubbing against the leather. One of them bursts. You flinch. No one notices. Then it's formation marching. Rows again. You line up 4 across. You're told to march in step. Left, right, left, right. Simple until it isn't. One man misses the beat. Everyone stumbles. The line breaks. The sergeant screams. You start over. Again, again, again. He teaches you how to wheel left, wheel right, how to pivot, how to advance without breaking ranks. You learn to keep your eyes straight ahead. Don't look at your feet. Don't look at your neighbor. Just listen. Listen for the cadence. Feel the rhythm in your legs. Move like a machine. The sergeant tells you the enemy will be watching. He says if you break ranks under fire, you'll die. Not maybe, not probably, you will. He says it with certainty, like a man who's seen it happen. You believe him. You don't understand the battle you're training for. No one has explained the strategy. You don't know the names of the generals, the layout of the land, the objectives. You know that you'll be given a position and expected to hold it, or you'll be told to charge and you'll run. That's it. The men training you don't understand it either. They pretend they do. They puff out their chests and talk about honor, about bravery, about defeating the enemy, but their eyes tell the truth. They're tired, they're angry, they've seen things you haven't yet, and they're not here to inspire you. They're here to make sure that when the time comes, you don't freeze. Someone faints during drill, heat stroke maybe, hunger. His knees buckle, he goes down hard, dust rises around his body. No one rushes to help. The sergeant orders you to step over him. You do. You feel sick, but you do it. The man lies there until 2 others drag him away like a sack of flour. You keep marching. The rest of the day passes in a blur of sweat, smoke, and shouted orders. Your ears ring from the volume. Your throat is raw from answering back. Yes, sir. No, sir. Ready, sir. It becomes a chant, a shield against individual thought. You're not a man anymore. You're part of the line. When the drill finally ends, you're shaking from fatigue, from dehydration, from adrenaline. You slump to the ground the moment you're allowed, your rifle across your lap, your hands in the dirt, your chest heaving. You're not proud of how you performed. No one is. The sergeant says you're still too slow, still too sloppy. He says the enemy won't wait for you to get it right. He says they'll shoot you where you stand, and then they'll shoot your friend, and then they'll trample your body on the way to the next row of frightened boys who never thought war would be this mechanical. You sit in silence, staring at nothing. Your body twitches. A muscle spasm maybe, or a nerve that just gave up. You stretch your neck and feel something pop. You taste ash in your mouth. You think it's powder, but it might be blood. You don't care. The fire tonight burns low. No one says much. You all smell like smoke and stress. One man is whittling a piece of wood into a spoon. Another is sharpening a bayonet that might never be used. A third is crying quietly, not because of the drill, but because he got a letter today and it said his brother died in a different regiment 2 states away. You roll up in your blanket. You stare at the stars through a tear in the tent flap. Your body aches, your mind spins. You close your eyes and all you see are rifles, commands, formations, the sergeant's face, inches from yours, daring you to flinch. Tomorrow you'll do it again, and maybe, if you're lucky, you'll get it right. By the time you get back from drill, your legs feel like splintered wood, your stomach is hollowed out like a burned barn, and the only thing you can think of is food. But in this war, food isn't nourishment, it's punishment. You sit down next to the fire pit, if your unit even has one today. Sometimes the firewood is wet or missing. Sometimes it's not worth wasting the effort. But tonight, there's a flicker of flame, weak and smoking. You reach into your sack and pull out what passes for dinner. It greets you like a slap, hardtack, a square biscuit the size of your palm, made from flour, water, and spite. No salt, no oil, no mercy. You've learned not to bite straight into it. The man who did that last week is still nursing a cracked molar, so you do what everyone else does. You break it with a rock first, or you smash it with the butt of your rifle. You even tried soaking it in water once, but it just got soggy and somehow tasted worse. Tonight you chew carefully, letting your back teeth do the slow grinding. You taste dust, mold, Maybe a weevil. You chew anyway. Salt pork comes next. You unwrap it like a secret you don't want to look at. It's greyish with veins of yellow fat and a smell that makes you turn your head. It jiggles when you poke it. It squeaks when you chew it. It's more cartilage than meat. Someone once said it tasted like death soaked in brine, and they weren't wrong. You slice a piece off with your knife. The blade sticks halfway through. You tug it free, wipe it on your pant leg, and try again. You swallow the first bite without chewing. You tell yourself it's easier that way. It isn't. If you're lucky, someone's got beans. Not fresh ones, of course. Dried beans, boiled until they burst and mash into a kind of edible glue. The smell is comforting, the texture less so. You trade your last clean shirt for a second helping you have before. Coffee, when it shows up, is sacred. It comes in rations, or sometimes as a gift from a supply officer who hasn't yet learned to hoard it for himself. You brew it in whatever container you've got, an old tin can, a blackened pot, even a mess kit if you're desperate. Grounds float like ash on the surface. The taste is harsh, bitter, and slightly metallic. But it's warm, it's dark, and it wakes you up enough to feel your own suffering again. Sugar is a fantasy, milk is a dream. You stir the coffee with a twig. You sip carefully, letting it burn your tongue so you forget the taste of everything else. A few men carry coffee beans like currency. You once saw a man trade 3 pinches of coffee for a plug of tobacco. He later said it was the best deal of his life. Tobacco is gold. You chew it, you smoke it, you roll it into strips of paper and light it with embers stolen from the cook fire. It's not a vice here, it's therapy. It's hunger's distraction and homesickness's cure. A man without tobacco is a man ready to snap. You've seen it. He twitches, he curses, he begs. Then he trades half his rations for a single roll. Soap is rarer than food. Clean hands are a luxury. You've cleaned your fork on your shirt more times than you've used water. One time, someone bartered a bar of soap for a tin of beans. The whole camp watched it happen like it was a duel. No one judged. Everyone understood. There's talk of spoiled meat being delivered at one of the camps 2 days south. Men opening barrels and finding green slime clinging to chunks of beef. Some ate it anyway, some didn't survive. You think about that while chewing tonight's pork. It tastes off but not dangerous, at least not yet. You remember once getting a ration of dried apples. You nearly cried. They were brown and shriveled, sticky with age and heat, but sweet. Real sweetness. You shared one slice with the man beside you. He stared at it like a religious relic before placing it on his tongue. Neither of you spoke for the rest of the meal. Once in a great while, a local farmer trades something fresh, a cabbage, a hunk of bread, a chicken once. That caused a fight. One man took the whole bird and vanished into the trees. The others searched for him with bayonets drawn. They found the bones and feathers, but not him. He'd eaten in hiding, alone. That's how hungry we are. Most of the time, though, it's just what's in your sack. Hardtack, salt pork, coffee if you're blessed. Maybe beans. Maybe nothing. Some nights, you skip dinner entirely. The supply train didn't come. Or it came late. Or it came and the quartermaster lost a few crates. No one asks questions. No one wants the answers. You eat slowly, even when starving. You've learned that rushing it makes your stomach cramp worse. You chew hardtack like you're grinding stones. You nibble pork around the edges, leaving the gristle. You drink coffee down to the grounds. You lick the spoon, then the bowl, then your fingers. Some men get creative. They crumble hardtack into boiling water, stir in pork scraps and call it soup. Others toast the biscuits over a flame to burn off the bugs. One man tried fermenting his leftover rations into alcohol. It worked. Once. He went blind for 3 days. No one's tried since. You miss food, real food. You remember bread, crusty, warm, with butter and maybe a slice of meat that didn't fight your knife. You remember stews that smelled like home, fried eggs, fried anything. You'd kill for a peach, you'd weep for a pickle, but that was another life. Here, food is function. It's a chore, like cleaning your rifle or digging a latrine. It's not meant to bring joy. It's meant to keep your heart beating long enough to carry a musket. Men talk about food like it's religion. Around the fire, they tell stories of meals from back home. Someone describes their mother's corn pudding. Another man recounts his wife's molasses bread. A third just closes his eyes and whispers roast beef like it's a prayer. One night, someone gets a package from home. Biscuits, real ones, soft. He eats one and hands the rest around. No one takes more than a bite. It's the first time you've seen grown men cry from food. The smell alone made your chest ache. For a moment, the war disappears. But that moment ends. The fire dies. The air cools. Your stomach grumbles again. You lick the last crumb from your palm and wrap your fingers around your canteen. Water, at least, is still real, sometimes. Tomorrow's rations are unknown. Maybe more pork, maybe more hardtack, maybe nothing. You've gone without before. You can again. The body adapts, or it doesn't. Some men wither. You've watched them shrink, day by day, eyes sinking, ribs showing. They eat, but it's not enough. It's never enough. You dig in your sack for one last scrap. You find an old piece of biscuit, soft with humidity. You hesitate. Then you eat it. You chew, you swallow. You sit still and let it settle in the void where your stomach used to be. Around you, men curl up in their blankets. A few smoke. One hums, another prays. You lie back on the dirt, arms over your chest, heart pounding with quiet hunger. The stars flicker above, cold, distant, uncaring. Your last thought before sleep is of a warm kitchen, a loaf of bread on the table, steam rising, laughter, a dog barking in the yard. You chase that memory into the dark, but it slips away before you catch it. Tomorrow, you'll wake up to hardtack again, and you'll eat it because you have no choice. The days between drills and marches stretch out like an endless void. They tell you war is about fighting, but most of it is waiting. You wait for food, for orders, for the weather to break. You wait for mail. You wait for death. And while you wait, you rot, slowly, deliberately, from the inside out. Camp life begins at dawn and ends whenever the sun dips below the tree line. Though sleep doesn't come easy, it's not the noise that keeps you awake, though there's always some. Coughing, whispering, a man weeping into his rolled-up coat. It's the itching, the crawling, the biting. Lice swarm under your shirt like it's their territory now. You scratch until you bleed, and they come back anyway. Fleas hide in your blanket. Ticks burrow behind your knees. Mosquitoes hum in your ears like they're mocking you. You kill them when you can. Mostly, you just suffer. There are no showers, no tubs, no soap that doesn't smell like axle grease. You haven't bathed in weeks, maybe longer. Rain sometimes helps, when it's not freezing, but mostly it just turns the camp into a pit of mud and stink. Your uniform was once blue or grey or something in between. Now it's brown, stiff with dried sweat and dust. You don't bother cleaning it anymore. What's the point? The filth is as much a part of the uniform as the buttons. Your socks are crusted, your boots grow mold, your breath smells like canned meat and old coffee, and you've grown used to it. You smell your bunkmate before you see him. He smells you too. No one talks about it. It's just the way of things. You are a walking storm of foul odors, and still, somehow, you get used to it. Eventually, the nose stops noticing. That doesn't mean others do. The latrines overflow daily. Shallow pits dug too close to camp, filled too quickly, never emptied. The stench drifts through the tents like fog. You try not to breathe when you pass them, but that's useless. The air tastes of waste. You learn to eat with that smell hanging around your plate. You learn to sleep with it in your nose. Sometimes the wind shifts and gives you a break. You pray for wind more than rain now. There's no privacy. None. Not for sleep. Not for relief. Not for thoughts. You sleep shoulder to shoulder. Sometimes in the dirt. Sometimes in shared tents that leak and sag. Conversations happen feet away. Arguments, snores, muttered dreams. You hear a man confess to something in his sleep once. Something he probably never meant to say out loud. No one brings it up the next day. You all have secrets. Camp life peels away layers of civility, but it also builds a strange kind of trust. You see each other at your worst, and somehow that makes you less afraid of being seen. During the day, time dies slowly. Cards are passed around, worn, creased, smudged with dirt. Games of chance, bets for rations or tobacco. Jokes that only half make sense. You play even when you don't feel like it. Boredom is a disease here, and cards are the medicine. When cards run out, stories begin. Some men lie, some boast, some remember. One man swears he saw Lincoln once. Another says he's related to Jefferson Davis. A third just talks about his dog for 20 minutes like it's the only thing anchoring him to earth. You write letters when you have paper. When you don't, you steal scraps or write in charcoal on anything you can find. You write to mothers, wives, sweethearts, even people you barely knew back home, because writing reminds you that you exist. You lie in the letters, mostly. You say the food is fine, the weather is fine, the war is going fine. You leave out the part about your blistered feet, your missing friend, the man who shot himself last night behind the supply tent. Reading letters is rarer. When the mail comes, it's like a sermon from God. Men gather around the carrier like wolves around meat. Names are shouted. If yours isn't called, your heart drops. If it is, you walk away from the group like you're holding treasure. You read it slowly, twice, 3 times. You fold it neatly, tuck it into your chest pocket. Some men keep letters even after they're unreadable, smudged with sweat and tears and rain. You never throw them away. The officers sometimes give speeches, morale they call it. You stand in a line and listen while someone talks about honor and duty and sacrifice. You nod, you clap, you don't believe a word of it. Not really, but it's something to do. And doing something is better than sitting in the dirt watching ants crawl over your boots. One man builds a chess set from carved twigs and stones. Another fashions a harmonica from scrap metal and plays it off key every night until someone throws a boot at him. A third spends his days drawing in the mud with a stick. You never ask what he's drawing. He never tells. Everyone has their rituals, their tiny rebellions against the grey tide of sameness that swallows the camp every morning. Fights break out. Tensions rise with the heat, with hunger, with homesickness. One man accuses another of stealing tobacco. They wrestle in the dirt. There's blood. No one breaks it up. Eventually they stop. Shake hands, maybe. Maybe not. Tomorrow they'll march side by side anyway. You can hate a man here and still die beside him. That's the rule. Rain comes and turns everything to rot. Your boots fill with water. Your blanket smells like mildew. The fire won't light. The food is damp. You sleep wet. You wake wet. Your skin puckers. Mold grows on canvas. You find mushrooms near your pillow. You eat one and hope it's the kind that won't kill you. It isn't. Lucky today. Sometimes there's music. A fiddler in company C, a drummer in the 12th, a man who sings with a voice too pure for this place. When they play, the camp pauses. Men stop chewing, stop spitting, stop scratching. They listen, and for a few minutes, the war is somewhere else. The sky is just a sky, the night is just a night, and your heart remembers what it felt like to be something other than a soldier. At night, the camp flickers with oil lamps and dying embers. Shadows stretch long and strange across the mud. You lie in your blanket and listen to the murmurs. Voices too tired to speak loud. One man coughs constantly. Another sleeps with his hand on his rifle. You close your eyes and see drill lines. You dream of home and wake with dirt in your mouth. Someone screams in his sleep. Nightmares are contagious here. They spread like fever. You've had them too. Dreams of cannon fire, of running with legs that won't move, of faces you don't recognize but feel responsible for. You don't talk about the dreams. No one does. Some men try to pray, kneeling in the mud, whispering into their hands, eyes shut so tight it looks painful. Others curse the sky and everything under it. You don't know where you stand anymore. You used to believe in things. Now you believe in surviving until the next fire. A dog wandered into camp once, mangy, one-eyed, tail bent at a strange angle. Someone named him Lucky. He stuck around for a week, shared rations, curled up with the men, barked at strangers. Then one morning he was gone. No one said anything. Some things just don't stay. When you wake each day, you don't know what will come. Drill maybe, march maybe, but most likely just more of this. The itch. The stink, the stillness. You rub your eyes and yawn through the flies. You eat your rations without tasting them. You scratch at the lice without thinking. You sit by the fire without speaking. And you wait, because war doesn't come like thunder every day. Most of the time, it's just a slow rot, a long crawling decay of mind and body, dressed in rags and smoke. Camp life isn't where you fight. It's where you unravel. Where the days blur, the stink becomes your skin, and the silence between drills feels louder than any gunshot. You are not dying here, not yet, but you're not quite alive either. You exist in a purgatory of mud and boredom, of buzzing insects and sour sweat, of waiting for a letter, a ration, a command. And tomorrow, when the bugle sounds and the boots stomp and the shouting starts again, you'll be grateful for the change, even if it's worse, because anything is better than doing nothing, even dying. You wake to the sound of shouting, not the usual grumbling or orders barked through half-asleep mouths. This is different, sharper, urgent, steel in every syllable. You sit up, heart already beating faster than it should. The camp is alive in a way it never has been before. Men running, boots stomping, metal clinking. Someone is crying, someone else is laughing. It doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. A sergeant shoves a rifle into your chest and screams something you don't hear. You nod anyway. You check your cartridge box with trembling hands, fingers cold despite the heat. You have ammunition. You have a bayonet. You have no idea what you're doing. They line you up like cattle, shoulder to shoulder, muskets loaded, eyes wide. No one talks. Some men glance around, hoping someone else knows what this will be like, but no one does. You included. You march. Not in formation like during drill, but in broken clusters, stumbling through brush and dried grass, the world around you already twitching with nerves. You hear gunfire ahead, pops, cracks, then heavier booms. You think, that's real, that's not practice, that's someone dying. You reach a clearing. The officer yells something about forming ranks. You fumble with your musket. You drop a cartridge. You curse. Hand shaking, you manage to load it. Badly, you think, but you don't care. You're too busy trying to stay upright. Then the smoke starts, not drifting from campfires, but exploding from rifles, thick and hot, curling around trees and faces and mouths. You cough, you blink, you can't see 10 feet ahead. Somewhere to your left, a musket erupts with a thunderous bang. You flinch, your ears ring, then more. A storm of fire opens around you, and the air turns white and grey and full of death. You fire your first shot without aiming. Just squeeze the trigger, feel the kick, and watch the musket leap in your hands. You have no idea if you hit anything. You doubt it. You reload. The steps from drill now fumbled, messy, half forgotten. Powder spills, ramrod sticks. You nearly drop the musket again. Someone screams. Not a war cry, not brave, pure terror. A man 2 steps to your right falls backward like a marionette whose strings were cut. His head is open. Blood sprays onto your arm. You don't have time to process it. Another shot, another scream. Another man grabs his stomach and drops, twitching. You don't know his name. Smoke eats the world. The sky is gone. Trees vanish. You can barely see your own rifle. Your mouth tastes like sulfur and fear. You keep firing because that's all you can do. Aim, maybe. Pull the trigger. Don't think, don't feel, don't look down. The noise is everywhere. Rifles exploding, men shouting, boots thundering. You hear the sharp twang of metal on bone, the wet thump of bodies hitting the ground. A voice yells, "Fall back!" Another yells, "Advance!" You don't know which to follow. You do neither. You stay frozen. Suddenly someone grabs your collar and yanks you down. A sergeant. His face is coated in soot, blood under one eye. He shouts, "Reload, damn it!" You obey. Fingers numb, powder sticking to your sweat-soaked hands. You feel like you're underwater. Nothing is sharp. Everything is slow. Then the cavalry charges in from the tree line, horses wild-eyed, sabers drawn. You duck instinctively. The noise grows louder, impossibly louder. You think one of the horses is going to trample you. Then it's gone. You fire again. You reload. You scream, not in anger or bravery, just to make a sound you can control. Someone charges. You don't know if it's friend or enemy. You stab with your bayonet and hit air. You trip over a body. You fall. The ground is sticky and warm. You realize what it is and you vomit. No one notices. Everyone is too busy dying or trying not to. The smoke thins briefly and you see faces, young, terrified, smeared with mud and ash. You lock eyes with a man 20 feet away. He could be your brother. He lifts his rifle. You don't move. He fires. The ball misses your head by inches. You feel the air shift around your ear like a whisper. You dive to the ground and crawl behind a stump, hands shaking uncontrollably. There are no flags waving, no trumpets blowing, no charge into glory, just chaos and pain and noise. The man beside you is moaning. His leg is gone. You look away. You want to help, but your arms won't move. You want to run, but your legs don't work. You just sit and shake. You see a lieutenant trying to rally the line. He stands tall, waving his sword, shouting orders. A moment later, his chest explodes and he crumples like paper. No one takes his place. The line collapses, or maybe there never was one. Someone calls a retreat, or maybe it's a charge. You can't tell. You're still behind the stump. You realize your musket is empty again. You fumble to reload, but your fingers won't work. You give up. You stare at the sky, grey and choked with smoke. A boy, no more than 16, runs past you, yelling something about his brother. A moment later, he falls forward, skidding in the dirt, blood spraying from his side. He doesn't move again. You wonder if you know his name. You don't. Eventually, the gunfire lessens. Not because the battle is over, but because everyone's run out of ammunition or blood or both. The smoke hangs low, mingling with the mist. Shapes move like ghosts, some crawling, some limping, some not moving at all. You stand up slowly, like your body isn't sure it wants to. Your ears are ringing. Your hands are shaking. Your face is wet, but you don't know if it's blood, sweat, tears, or all three. The field is a mess of bodies, some groaning, some still, some missing parts that used to be essential. A man with no jaw, a boy with no face. You step around them like you're walking on fragile glass. Every breath tastes like copper. Every heartbeat feels stolen. You make it back to the trees where others are gathering. No formation, no ranks, just survivors, ghosts, eyes wide, mouths slack. Some mumble prayers, some laugh hysterically. One man is rocking back and forth, cradling a boot that no longer has a foot inside. No one cheers. No one talks about bravery. No one sings. There are no flags lifted in triumph. Just silence. Thick, awful silence, broken only by the occasional groan from the wounded and the crackling of fires burning where trees used to stand. Someone hands you a canteen. You drink. You don't taste it. Someone else pats your shoulder. You flinch. You sit down, then lie back, then curl into yourself like a wounded animal. Your musket is somewhere nearby, forgotten. You think about the stories you heard before this, of men charging fearlessly into battle, of bayonets gleaming, of honor and courage and noble sacrifice. But what you saw wasn't any of that. It was confusion, noise, smoke, blind murder under an open sky. You don't even know if you killed anyone. You don't want to know. You hope not. You fear not. You fear that you did. You fear that you liked it. You look at your hands. They're filthy, blackened, bloody in places. You don't recognize them. You wonder what your mother would think if she saw you now. The officers are counting heads. You don't want to be counted. You want to vanish into the trees. But you stay. You always stay. That's the rule. Until someone tells you to move again, you just sit, breathe, and try to forget the screams. Later that night, when the sky is darker than you've ever seen it, and the wind smells like gunpowder and burning flesh, you close your eyes and see it all again. The smoke, the blood, the boy's face before it vanished, the officer with his chest gone, the stump you cowered behind, the sound of your own musket firing into nothing. This was your first battle. It will not be your last. You don't remember falling. One moment you're stumbling through smoke and shattered trees. The next you're on the ground, staring at the sky like it's some stranger's face. You try to move your arm. Nothing. You try to sit up. The pain screams before you do. It's everywhere. Burning, pulsing, cold and hot at once. You can't tell if it's your leg, your side, your shoulder. Maybe all of them. You look down. Blood thick and dark, already soaking your shirt. You wonder if it's yours. It has to be. There's too much of it. The world tilts. Boots pound past you. A voice calls your name or someone else's. Then a shadow leans over you. Someone you know. You blink. It's a boy with dirt on his face and fear in his eyes. He lifts your arm. No, not your arm, your body. And you scream without meaning to. It's a raw, broken animal sound. You want to tell him to stop. You want to say thank you. All that comes out is blood. You're dragged more than carried, through weeds, over bodies, through mud that smells like rot. Your foot catches something, a stump, a corpse. You can't tell. You black out. When you wake again, it's not quiet. It's not peaceful. It's worse. The field hospital is just a barn with the animals cleared out, or a church stripped of its holiness, or a tent flapping in the wind with blood pooling underneath. There are no white walls, no clean beds, just men laid out on blankets, groaning, moaning, some not making a sound at all, which is somehow worse. You taste copper. Your mouth is dry. Your throat is dust. You try to speak, but it's drowned by a scream, long, high, endless. Then another and another. It never stops. The smell hits you next. Not just blood, though that's part of it, but something deeper, older, infection, waste, rot, like meat left out too long, like death that forgot to knock. You gag, but there's nothing left inside you to throw up. The flies are already on your face. You swat them away. Weakly, they come back. You're laid on a table, not a bed, not a cot, just a plank of wood slick with fluids you hope aren't yours. The man beside you is missing a leg. He's not asleep. He's not awake. His eyes are open but don't see. His breath rattles like broken glass. You don't know if he's dying or done. The surgeon appears without ceremony. He doesn't look like a savior. He looks like a butcher. His apron is soaked red. His sleeves rolled up. He doesn't wear gloves. No one here does. He holds a saw in one hand, a stained rag in the other. His eyes meet yours for a second, flat, tired, without apology. He says nothing. Someone grabs your arms, someone else your legs. You try to fight, but it's useless. You're too weak. Your limbs feel distant, already gone. You scream again, but they don't stop. You're not the first. You won't be the last. The saw meets your skin and you feel everything. There is no anesthesia. They give you a belt to bite, or sometimes nothing. If you're lucky, whiskey. If you're luckier, you pass out before the blade hits bone. You're not lucky. The pain comes like lightning, white, blinding. You arch, you thrash, you howl. The saw crunches through like it's wood, not flesh. You hear it more than you feel it, at least at first. Then the nerves catch up, and it's worse than anything you imagined. You want to die. You pray to die. You'd trade your soul to end it now, but you don't die. You live. You live through every grinding pull of the blade, every splatter of blood, every groan of the wooden table under your back. When it's done, someone wraps the stump in a rag. Not clean, nothing is clean. They tie it tight and move on. You're rolled off the table like garbage, dumped next to other men missing arms, legs, hope. No one comforts you. No one has time. The screams continue. The flies return. You stare at the canvas above you and wait to feel human again. It doesn't happen. The hours blend. You drift in and out. Dreams of home swirl with images of the saw, the surgeon's face, the blood pooling around your boot. You wake sweating. You sleep sobbing. The man beside you dies quietly in the night. No one notices until morning. They drag him out by the feet. Another man takes his place. Your wound festers. It smells wrong. Yellow pus leaks through the cloth. A nurse, a boy barely older than you, changes the dressing. He tries to smile. He fails. You watch him toss the old bandage onto a pile in the corner, a pile that moves with flies. There's no medicine, no antiseptic, just whiskey and sawdust and hope. They say if the fever comes, it's bad. You already have the fever. You shake at night, hallucinate during the day. You dream of cool water, of clean sheets, of someone holding your hand. None of it comes. The man across from you screams every hour, like clockwork. You think he's missing something vital. Maybe inside, maybe not. A chaplain walks by sometimes, saying prayers over the ones who won't make it. He looks tired. You wonder if he prays for himself. You're not sure how many days pass. 3, 5, a week. The sun rises, the screams start, the saw buzzes, the flies swarm. That's the rhythm now, like some hellish hymn no one wants to sing but everyone knows the words to. You overhear talk of moving the wounded. You pray you're not one of them. Movement means another cart ride, another field, another nightmare. But you are moved, loaded onto a wagon with straw and other men groaning. The road is rough. Every bump feels like fire. You grip the edge of the wagon and bite your tongue to keep from crying out. You fail. They take you somewhere quieter, a farmhouse, a schoolhouse. You don't care. The bed is still a plank. The flies are still there. But there's a woman here. She wipes your forehead with a rag. She doesn't smile, but her touch is gentle. You nearly cry from that alone. She speaks to you once. You're lucky, she says, wiping the edge of your mouth. You don't believe her, but you want to. Your stump scabs over. It throbs constantly. Your whole body aches. You're thinner, pale. The wound seeps. The fever fades, then returns. You don't know what's worse, pain or numbness. You don't want to die anymore, but you're not sure you want to live like this either. One day someone brings bread. It's stale, hard, but it smells like something other than blood. You eat it with shaking hands. Another day, someone brings a letter, not for you, but you hold it anyway. Pretend. You miss pretending. A man with one eye tells you he's going home. You envy him. You hate him. You want to be him. You stare at the bandage where your leg used to be and wonder if anyone will recognize you now. You wonder if you'll ever dance again, if you'll ever run, if anyone back home will still want you. There's a boy in the corner who sings sometimes. His voice is cracked, but sweet. You listen to him every evening until his coughing fits cut the song short. He doesn't make it through the week. The surgeon comes around less now, only when someone screams loud enough to demand attention. You try not to scream. You don't want his attention anymore. You learn to dress the wound yourself. Slowly, clumsily, you grit your teeth and ignore the sting. That's what life is now, ignoring pain long enough to find something else to think about. Eventually, you're able to sit up, stand, hobble. A cane is carved from a branch and handed to you like a trophy. You take it without ceremony. Every step feels wrong. Every step reminds you of what's missing. You ask when you'll leave. No one answers. You ask again. Still nothing. So you wait. You've gotten good at that. And one morning, the nurse taps your shoulder. Time to move, he says. You don't ask where. You don't care. You grip the cane. Stand slowly, sway, grit your teeth, step. The flies are still there. The screams have faded but not vanished. The blood-stained table waits for someone else now. You limp out of the tent. No fanfare, no parade. Just the soft crunch of gravel under your one good foot and the sound of wind in the grass. You survived, but not whole, not clean, not untouched, only just enough to keep going. It happens faster than you thought it would. One moment you're loading your rifle behind a splintered fence post trying to keep your head low as musket balls zip past, and the next your commanding officer is waving a white scrap of cloth, what used to be his undershirt, above his head. There are no bugles, no booming declarations, just silence, then shouting, then the sound of boots stomping toward you. You're disarmed in seconds, your musket taken, your cartridge box ripped from your belt. You raise your hands and stare into the faces of men who look just as tired, filthy, and terrified as you. Their uniforms are different, but the eyes are the same. Dull, wary, hollowed out from months of hunger and fear. Someone punches you in the stomach hard. Another grabs your canteen. They don't even ask. That's your welcome. Then the march begins. Again, you thought the worst was over. It isn't. They drive you forward with bayonets and curses through thorny brush and across sun-baked roads. No water, no food, no rest. You stumble more than walk, each step feeling like betrayal. Every muscle aches, every joint screams. Behind you, a boy no older than 16 falls and doesn't get up. One of the guards doesn't even blink, just keeps walking. The boy's body becomes part of the road, forgotten before it cools. The prison looms ahead by day 3, a crude stockade, walls of sharpened logs jammed into the earth, leaning inward like they're already collapsing. Inside, misery, barely contained. You're shoved through the gate, no processing, no questions, no roll call, just a barked order. Find space. You do, if you can call it that. A patch of dirt barely wide enough for your body, no tent, no blanket, just dust, and men, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all in rags, all bones wrapped in skin. The stink hits you like a wave. Sweat, rot, excrement, blood, no latrines, just a trench along the wall that overflows by noon. You sit, you wait. That's what life becomes here. The first meal comes late, if it comes at all. A single tin cup passed down the line. Inside, something that once resembled beans, now just murky sludge with a smell that says don't. You drink it anyway. Hunger doesn't allow pride. The next day, there's nothing. The day after that, spoiled cornbread, green with mold. You eat around the worst parts and pretend not to notice the crawling things inside. Sleep is a luxury. There are no beds, only bodies. Men curl up beside you for warmth. Some snore, some twitch, some cry in their sleep, some stop breathing by morning. They're dragged out to the edge of the camp, dumped in shallow pits with no ceremony. The dirt is too hard to dig deep. The flies don't care either way. You itch constantly. Fleas and lice are part of your uniform now. You scratch until your skin breaks, then keep scratching. Everyone does. It's the only thing to do between coughing fits and shivering spells. A man near you coughs up blood every morning. Another hasn't moved in 2 days. You wonder if he's dead. No one checks. It doesn't matter. Dysentery spreads fast. You hear the moans, the cries, the watery footsteps to the trench. The stink of it lingers in your throat. Your belly cramps, tightens, twists. You pray not to get it. But you do. Everyone does. It's only a matter of time. The guards stand on wooden towers outside the fence, rifles in hand. They don't talk to you. They don't feed you. Sometimes they laugh. Other times they sleep. One shoots a man trying to crawl under the wall. He wasn't escaping, just looking for shade. The bullet tears through his spine. He bleeds out in front of everyone. No one moves. That's the rule. If you move, you're next. You trade what little you have. A button for a scrap of tobacco, a spoon for a crust of bread, a story for a sip of coffee, real or imagined. Someone sings a hymn one night, soft, broken, most join in, a few weep. Then silence again. There are no clocks, no calendars. Days blur. You count by the dead. 4 today, 6 yesterday. One of them was your tent mate. You don't remember his name. You barely spoke. But when they took him away, you felt colder. You lose weight fast. Your ribs show. Your face caves in. Your gums bleed. Your teeth loosen. You piss brown and dream of rivers. Sometimes you chew grass just to feel your jaw move. You'd kill for an apple. You'd kill for a potato. You'd kill for anything. Hope fades. Escape is fantasy. The fences are tall. The guards don't sleep enough to miss anything. The men who try don't come back. Or worse, are brought back as warnings. Some prisoners go mad, talking to invisible friends, laughing at flies, smearing feces on their own chests. You watch, horrified and then jealous. Maybe madness is better than this. One night, a man tells you his brother was in the same camp, but died 2 weeks before he arrived. He dug up the shallow grave just to make sure. The body was barely covered. The rats had been first. He laughs while telling you. You try not to. Rain comes. The camp turns to soup, mud everywhere. Your blanket, if you were lucky enough to have one, is soaked. You sleep sitting up now. Cold water seeps into every joint. Your toes stay wet for days. Then they stop feeling anything. You check them one morning and they're blue. There's no medicine, no doctors, no mercy. Someone whispers rumors. A prisoner exchange. Maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe never. It keeps some men alive a few days longer. Others stop listening. You learn not to ask. A boy dies in your arms. Couldn't have been more than 15. Didn't know how to grow a beard yet. He held your hand when the fever got high. Cried for his mother. Then went still. You don't cry. You don't have the water left in your body to spare it. One morning they call your name. You don't believe it at first. Then they call it again. You stand, barely. Your knees wobble. Your vision blurs. You walk like a ghost toward the gate. It's not freedom, just transfer. A different camp. A different kind of hell, but movement feels like life again. You hold on to it. It might be enough. Behind you, the gates close. The screams continue. The rats skitter. The stink lingers in your nose like it's been burned there permanently. You survived. You don't know how. You're not the same man anymore. You left pieces of yourself inside that fence. Pride, warmth, mercy, hope. What's left is bones, bitterness, and a heartbeat that won't stop, not yet. You thought staying home meant safety. You thought war belonged to soldiers, to generals, to maps. But war doesn't care what you thought. War doesn't knock. It walks right through your front door and sits at your table, eats your food, and burns your roof down. Whether you wear a uniform or not, the war finds you, and it doesn't leave. You're a southern farmer, maybe. You used to rise at dawn, tend to your land, your family, your mule. Your hands were hard, but your life had rhythm. You knew when to plant, when to harvest, when the seasons would turn. Then came the draft. Not a request, not a plea, a command. One morning, a man rode up in a grey coat with a paper in his hand and a pistol on his hip. He said you had 48 hours. You said you had mouths to feed. He said the Confederacy had bigger mouths. You left your wife with 4 children and a field that wouldn't plough itself. Promised to return before the frost. You never saw that field again. Or maybe you're the wife, the one left behind. He kissed your forehead and walked away with the rifle he'd barely learned to use and a look in his eyes like he already knew he wouldn't come back. Now it's just you. You dig the furrows, you swing the axe, you keep the fire going, you hush the baby and lie to the older ones. Papa's fine. He'll write soon. But he hasn't. Not in weeks. Maybe months. You count the time by how low the corn sacks get, by how many candles are left, by how many names appear in the newspaper death lists. Too many. Food's harder to come by now. The neighbors are just as hungry. Prices rise like smoke. Salt costs what sugar used to. Sugar is a myth. Flour's rationed. Coffee, gone. You make do with roasted acorns and bitter chicory. The children don't notice anymore. Their stomachs growl quietly now. They've learned not to ask. The town changes. More widows, more empty homes, less laughter. The young men vanish. The old grow thinner. The church bell rings less for weddings and more for funerals, or not at all. You stop wearing colours. What's the point? The dye ran out anyway. The mail comes slow if it comes. You wait at the post office like it's the last church left. A folded piece of paper, a name scrawled on the outside. Maybe it's good news. He's alive. Maybe it's worse. He's not. Or maybe there's nothing. Just silence. Again. Then come the soldiers. Not yours. Theirs. Blue uniforms, muddy boots, eyes that don't see people. Just territory. They march through your fields, trample your garden, take your chickens. They say it's requisitioning. You say it's stealing. They say it's war. One throws a match into the barn as they leave. You scream. He doesn't turn around. Or maybe it's your side doing the burning. Your town, your people, your flags. Doesn't matter. The fire doesn't care whose uniform lit it. It eats everything. You think about fleeing. But where? The next town is no better. The roads are lined with people just like you, carrying sacks, pushing carts, holding babies, looking behind them more than ahead. Some weep, some don't. Most are silent. And if you're in the north, it's not easier. Your sons leave with fanfare, drums, cheers, promises of glory. But the parades end quick. The letters slow. One comes back with trembling hands and eyes that look right through you. Another never comes back at all. A letter instead, with regret. That's all it says. Your husband works longer hours now, or drinks longer. Factories run day and night. Smoke covers the city like a second skin. The food still costs more. The neighbors still whisper about riots, about draft protests, about the next shipment of coffins. You think of the war as something distant. But then a train stops in town and unloads the wounded. Boys missing legs. Boys with haunted faces. Boys who used to live on your street. You bring them bread. They can't eat. You bring them water. They flinch. You ask what happened. They don't answer. The schools close. The teachers leave. The older girls sew uniforms now. The younger boys drill with wooden rifles behind the church. A preacher gives sermons about sacrifice, about destiny, about victory. But his son died last week, and his voice cracks when he says the word honor. You try to pretend. You scrub the floor. You hang laundry. You write letters that end with, "We miss you," and start with the lies. "We're doing fine. Everyone sends love. The baby's grown so much." You fold the paper and seal it with a kiss you don't feel. But the days get longer. The cracks in the wall grow wider. The food runs lower. You sell your wedding ring for firewood. You sell your mother's shawl for candles. Eventually there's nothing left but the house, and even that creaks like it wants to leave. Then the war comes closer, closer than ever. You hear cannon fire from the hills. The windows rattle. The ground trembles. You hide in the cellar with the children, holding them close while the sky growls like a hungry beast. You pray. You bargain. You scream. The baby wails. The eldest asks if you're going to die. You don't answer. The next morning, the soldiers are gone. What's left is smoke, broken fences, and a world that doesn't look like the one you knew. The well's poisoned, the barn's gone, the neighbor's house is ash. You find a body in your garden, not someone you know, just a man in blue or grey. It doesn't matter. You dig a shallow grave with shaking hands. You don't say a prayer. You just bury him and move on. Time crawls. You rebuild, or try to. The roof leaks. The chickens won't lay. The seeds rot before they sprout. You do what you must. Some sell bread. some sell themselves. Everyone sacrifices something: hair, dignity, hope, and still the war drags on. You learn new ways to grieve, to ration, to wait, to pretend. You learn to live without answers, without justice, without peace. You learn to survive when survival has no joy in it. Sometimes a boy comes home, walking slowly down the road. Maybe he has both arms. Maybe not. Maybe he speaks. Maybe he just stares. The family runs out to meet him. They cry. They cheer. And the boy flinches at every loud noise. He sleeps on the floor and wakes up screaming. The neighbors don't complain. They understand. One morning, a paper arrives. It says the war is over. The ink is fresh. The words are bold. But they feel hollow. What does over mean when your husband's buried near Antietam? When your son limps instead of runs? When your daughter asks why papa's voice never answers anymore? You step outside. The sun shines. The sky is blue. But nothing feels healed. Nothing feels right. You still carry grief like it's stitched into your skin. The town is quieter now, but not peaceful. Just tired. You gather firewood. You fetch water. You plant seeds and hope this time they grow. You write another letter, even though there's no one left to send it to. You write it anyway, because that's what people do after wars. They go on, somehow, even when nothing is left of the life they had, even when the war didn't need a bullet to find them. You didn't come to this war thinking much about slavery. Maybe you'd heard the speeches. Maybe you'd argued politics in a tavern. Maybe someone handed you a pamphlet filled with slogans about union or rights or state sovereignty. But it all seemed distant, abstract, something for senators, not soldiers. You came because your neighbor did, or your brother did, or because you were told to. You came because someone told you it was your duty, your land, your flag. But the longer you stay, the closer you get to something uglier than bullets and blood. You start to see what this war is truly about. It begins with a sound, a high-pitched scream in the woods behind the column. You stop. So does everyone else. A whip cracks. Once, twice, 3 times. Then the voice goes hoarse. A man in grey emerges, holding a leather lash and muttering about disobedience. Behind him, a boy, no older than 10, crawls, shirt torn, skin bleeding. No one says a word. The officer calls it discipline. You call it something else, but only in your head. You try to move on. Tell yourself it's not your business, that you're here to fight soldiers, not rescue slaves. But the image sticks. The boy's face, the blood, the silence. Later, in a burned-out town, you find them, huddled near a collapsed barn. 3 women, one of them clutching a baby, all barefoot, all wrapped in rags. They don't beg, they just stare at you, wide-eyed and waiting for something. Mercy, maybe, or the opposite. A sergeant waves his rifle and tells them to move on. They don't. He fires into the air. They flinch, then they leave. You don't know where they're going. There's nowhere to go. The road behind them leads only to ashes. You enter a plantation the next week. The fighting passed through already. The big house is half burned. The fields are empty, but the quarters still stand. Those narrow, crumbling shacks lined up like livestock stalls. You step inside one. The smell hits you first: sweat, rot, mold, fear. There's barely space to lie down. A broken stool, a torn blanket, a rusted kettle. That's all. And scratches on the wood. Tallies? Names? You can't tell. You step out, heart pounding. The war has many fronts. This one has no flags, no generals, just shackles. A captured Confederate officer brags to you during a prisoner exchange, says he had 30 Negroes back home, says he made more money from them than his father ever did farming, laughs about the time he sold 2 brothers to different buyers just to teach them obedience, says they cried like animals. He smiles when he says it. You don't smile back. Then comes the day your unit liberates a southern town, and they come pouring out. Dozens of them, hundreds, some old, some so young they can barely walk, some crying, some laughing, some in disbelief. They call you Angel, Yankee, Freedom. They fall to their knees, raise their hands, touch your coat like it's made of gold. You don't know what to say. You feel proud maybe, like you've done something good. But then you see the scars, the thick ridges on their backs, the sunken cheeks, the missing fingers. You see the ones who can't speak because their tongues were cut. You see women with haunted eyes and bruises that speak volumes. You see men who no longer look like men, just shadows of what they were allowed to become. And suddenly, your pride turns to nausea. They tell stories at night, around the fire, whispers at first, then louder with rage, of mothers sold while their children screamed, of husbands whipped for looking a white man in the eye, of girls dragged into barns and left bleeding, of babies drowned in buckets because the master didn't want more mouths. You sit, frozen, you listen, and the weight of it crushes your chest. One man shows you his branding scar, a letter burned into his shoulder like cattle. He says it used to smell like meat when it was fresh. You can't meet his eyes. The next town has a slave auction block still standing. The sign still hangs above it. Strong boys, fertile girls, good stock. The words make your skin crawl. You imagine standing there, chained, as strangers poke your teeth and count your muscles. You imagine being sold away from everyone you love because someone needed an extra hand to pick cotton. This isn't a war about tariffs anymore. You begin to notice the divide in your own ranks. Some of the men hate slavery, they say so loud. Others grumble about Negroes taking jobs. Some still think it's not worth fighting over. One says, they're better off in chains. You nearly hit him, but you don't. You just walk away shaking. You used to think you knew what you were fighting for. Now you're not so sure. And then one day, you're ordered to help move contraband. Escaped slaves now under Union protection. A mother with 3 kids. An old man. A pregnant girl no older than 16. You're told to escort them to the rear lines. You do. But halfway there, you see it. Confederate cavalry cutting through the trees. You scream, you run. The old man falls. The girl can't move fast enough. Shots ring out. You keep running. You don't look back. You make it. They don't. You carry that with you. Every day, every mile. You dream of the girl's face, of the way the old man grabbed your coat before falling. You hear their voices in the wind. You see their shadows at night. You wonder if there's a God. And if he saw it too. A chaplain tells you this is divine punishment, that slavery is a sin America must purge with fire and blood. You believe him, but you wish the fire didn't have to burn this hot. You wish the blood didn't have to be so deep. You meet a black regiment on the march. Proud men, brave faces. They sing as they walk. Their uniforms are rougher, their gear older, but their eyes are sharp. You nod at one. He nods back. In that moment, you understand something you can't explain, that this war is bigger than flags, bigger than politics. It's about people, about worth, about who gets to live with dignity and who doesn't. And the longer you stay, the more haunted you become, not just by the war itself, but by the things that caused it, by the men who defended it, by the silence of those who looked away. You think of all the years before, decades where this horror was legal, normal, accepted. You wonder how many looked into the abyss and said nothing. You promise yourself you won't be one of them. But the war goes on, the killing continues, the fields keep burning, and in every burnt house, every empty shack, every pair of eyes you meet, you see it. The truth, that this war was never just about land or law or politics. It was about humanity, and the line between it and something much darker. The cannon finally stops. The earth stops trembling. The sky stops flashing, but peace doesn't come. It never does. The silence after the battle is worse than the noise, because in that silence, you hear what the cannon drowned out. The moans, the prayers, the soft dying gasps of boys too young to be here bleeding into the soil beside you. The sun sinks low behind black trees stripped bare by smoke. The light fades, and with it goes whatever sense of safety the daylight offered. Campfires sputter to life across the field, little islands of flickering orange in a sea of mud and fear. You sit close to the flames, not for comfort, but for survival. It's cold, bone-deep cold, and your coat is damp with sweat and blood. You don't even know if it's yours. Someone tries to sing, a trembling voice carrying a few bars of a hymn you once heard in church. But it dies out fast, choked by the wind or by memory. What's left is the shuffling of boots, the clink of tin cups, the scraping of spoons in nearly empty pots. You pretend you're not still hungry. You lie to your stomach like you lie to your mother in your letters. All is well, but it isn't. Your hands shake, not from the cold, not only. Your rifle sits beside you, not even cleaned. You're too tired, too sore, too aware that tomorrow you might not need it anyway, because you might not wake up. Around the fire, the men stare into the flames like they're waiting for something, maybe an answer, maybe forgiveness. One pokes the embers with a stick, another picks at his boot with a knife. One man mutters about home, his voice cracks. Nobody answers him. From somewhere in the dark, someone screams, a long, ragged sound that cuts through the trees like a blade. Another man dying slow, or someone waking from a nightmare, or both. You don't flinch anymore. The first week you did. You sat up straight, alert, ready. Now you just close your eyes and try not to picture the face. You try to sleep. You roll onto your side, press your head into your arm, curl into the thinnest shape you can make. The ground is hard, wet, cruel. Your blanket is thin and smells of mildew. Lice crawl along your collar. You scratch but don't even try to find them anymore. They're part of you now, like the blisters on your heels and the hollowness in your chest. Sleep won't come, not really. You doze, maybe, drift. Your mind flickers between memories and dread, between the warmth of your mother's kitchen and the image of the boy who died with half a face, between a childhood song and the hiss of blood spilling into dirt, between hope and the certainty that you're breaking apart. Then the noises start, different this time. Footsteps, not marching, not hurried, careful, close. You sit up, so do others. Shadows shift beyond the firelight. A figure stumbles into view, drunk. A soldier you know. He's laughing or crying, hard to tell. He pisses near the fire and slurs something about the generals being pigs. Then he wanders off again, deeper into the dark. You wonder if you'll ever see him again. Sometimes you don't. Deserters move at night. Men who've had enough. Men who toss their gear in the ditch and vanish into the woods. Some make it, most don't. The ones who get caught come back tied up, bruised and bloodied. The others are never spoken of. But the deserters aren't the worst danger out here. Sometimes the enemy is already among you, in your own camp. Men who snap under pressure, men with knives, men with no lines left to cross. A soldier went missing 2 nights ago. They found his body in the river, throat cut, boots gone. No one talks about it out loud, but you feel it. The tension, the glances, the knowledge that every man here is capable of something awful given the right push. The fire dies low. The night gets deeper. Somewhere, an owl calls. Somewhere, a rat scurries. Somewhere, a man quietly sobs into his coat. You don't remember falling asleep, but suddenly you're awake again. Your back aches. Your mouth is dry. Your fingers are numb. The stars are out, cold, uncaring points of light scattered across the black. They look beautiful and cruel. You wonder if your mother sees them too tonight. If she's thinking of you, if she knows how close you came to dying today. A sergeant walks past, his silhouette barely more than a shadow. He stops, looks at you, nods once, and moves on. He's not checking if you're alive. He's checking if you're awake. That's all that matters now. You try to rest again, maybe catch an hour, maybe a minute, but your heart thumps too loud. Your mind replays the sounds of musket fire, the screams of wounded men, the way the air smelled when the cannons started. You think of the man who died beside you. His name was Andrew or Anthony. You can't remember now. His blood was hot when it hit your face. You didn't look back. You couldn't. And then, somehow, you dream. It's not a peaceful dream. You're not home. You're not safe. It's the battlefield again, but worse. The trees scream. The sky bleeds. The earth pulls you under. You shout, but no one hears. You wake up gasping, heart racing, eyes wide. It's still dark. Nothing's changed. You drink from your canteen. The water's warm and tastes like metal, but it's something. Your stomach groans. You haven't eaten since noon. A crust of hardtack, maybe. A smear of salt pork. You chew it in your head. The memory of food more filling than the real thing. The fire's nearly out. The coals glow like dying eyes. You add a stick. It smokes. You wait. A man across from you starts muttering in his sleep. Not words, just sounds. He twitches, then stills. You don't ask if he's okay. You've stopped asking. You hear coughing behind you. That deep, rattling kind. The kind that doesn't go away. The kind that means he's not making it through the winter. He knows it. You all do. Dawn is hours away. You press your hands under your armpits, trying to keep the feeling in your fingers. Your coat's thin, your boots are wet, your shoulders ache, everything hurts. And tomorrow you'll march again. 20 miles, 30, doesn't matter. You'll march until your soles bleed and your vision blurs. You'll drill, you'll dig, you'll fight, and you'll pray you make it one more day. But that's tomorrow. Tonight, you're just a boy pretending to be a soldier, wrapped in rags beside a dying fire, hoping the darkness doesn't notice you're still breathing. Because out here, nightfall brings no peace. Only waiting, only cold, only the knowledge that the worst is never over. It's just resting, like you, waiting to begin again. They tell you it's a big one this time, not just a skirmish, not a probing attack or a picket line exchange. No, this is a full battle. The kind they'll write about in newspapers, the kind that changes maps, the kind where thousands march in and thousands don't come back out. You feel it in the way the officers walk, in the silence between orders, in the tightness of every man's jaw. They give you no speech, no grand declaration, just a direction and a bayonet, and then they point, a ridge, a stone wall, a wheat field, golden and wide, a muddy, sunken road. Wherever you are, Gettysburg, Antietam, Fredericksburg, it blurs into one landscape of death. The name doesn't matter. What matters is that you're going forward, into the mouth of it. Your boots sink into churned earth as you line up, shoulder to shoulder with men who were laughing 2 days ago. One of them fingers a photo tucked in his coat. Another ties a rag around his wrist so his body can be identified later. You don't bring it up. You just nod. The drums start, slow, then faster. Your throat is dry. Your knees shake. But your legs move anyway. Forward, left, right, step, breathe, step. Don't look at the sky. Don't look at the birds. Don't think of home. Then the first cannon goes off. It's not a sound. It's a force, like the air is being punched. Your ears ring. Your teeth rattle. You flinch instinctively, even though it landed far off. Then another, and another. You see the puffs of smoke from the tree line ahead. Hear the distant booming like God himself is angry. Then the whistling starts. Shells arcing high, spinning, screaming toward earth. One hits 50 yards ahead, a flash, a sound like wood snapping, meat tearing, dirt and limbs fly into the sky. You keep walking. Someone throws up beside you. Someone else drops his rifle. No one stops. The world turns to smoke and thunder. Then you see it, enemy lines, dug in behind stone, behind logs, behind anything that might stop a bullet. Muskets flash like lightning across a storm front. You see no faces, only the muzzle bursts, the white fog, the flags flapping above it all. You're ordered to charge, and then you're running. Feet pounding the ground, pack slamming against your back, rifle bouncing in your hands. Someone screams, "Go!" But you don't need the order. You go because everyone else is going. You go because stopping means death. The man to your left drops, a bullet through the eye. He's dead before he hits the ground. Someone else cries out and clutches his leg. A man stumbles forward, hands clutching his belly, blood pouring between his fingers like red rope. You keep running, closer now. You can see the eyes behind the enemy rifles. You raise your weapon, fire, reload, fire again, bayonet down, closer, closer, and then you hit the wall. It's chaos, screaming, smoke, blood. You stab, swing, reload, shove. Your ears are ringing so loud you can't hear your own voice. Your body moves on instinct, training, survival. Someone grabs you, enemy, friend. You don't know. You slam the butt of your rifle into their jaw. A cannon blasts so close it lifts you off your feet. You land hard, the breath knocked from your lungs. You can't move, can't think, just see. A man dragging himself by the elbows. A sergeant trying to hold his intestines in with a blood-soaked sash. A boy, 16 maybe, younger than you, holding his arm like it's not attached anymore. And still, it doesn't stop. You're pulled back. Retreat. The wall is lost, or held, or irrelevant. You don't know. You crawl through the grass, soaked in blood and sweat and things you can't name. Your rifle's gone. Your canteen's leaking. Your boots are red. Night falls. You made it. Barely. You lie in the field among the dead. The groans are everywhere. Some men cry for mothers. Others whisper prayers. A few just lie quiet, waiting, hoping, or too far gone to hope. You try to sleep. You can't. You stare at the stars. The same stars you saw last week, last year, back home. They look different now. Gettysburg, Antietam, Chickamauga, Shiloh. The names echo in your mind like gravestones. You weren't at all of them. No one was. But they follow you. They define this war. They define you. Gettysburg, where men charged up a hill under cannon fire so thick it shook the bones of the earth, where Pickett's men marched shoulder to shoulder into musket fire like a wave crashing into rocks. Antietam, where the cornfield ran red, where men died 10 deep in the sunken road now known as Bloody Lane, where the bodies were so dense you could walk across without touching dirt. You hear the names in whispers, in prayers, in screams. You hear them in your sleep. And for what? A few yards of ground? A hill you'll abandon tomorrow? A road you'll burn next week? You start to wonder if anyone knows what they're doing. If the generals who draw the lines on maps ever see the faces of the boys who follow those lines to their graves. The next morning, you're back in line, again, marching, again. A corporal jokes that you'll take the same hill a third time. Maybe this time it'll stick. No one laughs. Your body aches, your soul is tired, but the bugles still sound and the orders still come, and the war doesn't care how much you've given. It wants more, always more. You march into the next town, or what's left of it. Smoke rising, fields empty, a church blown apart, a child's shoe in the gutter. You don't know if it was Union or Confederate. It doesn't matter anymore. Death doesn't wear a uniform. You pass the hospital wagons, the piles of arms and legs, the surgeons with sleeves rolled up to the elbows, the saws, the buckets, the screams. You pass the graves, dozens, hundreds unmarked, quick dug, some with names carved into sticks, most without. You think about writing home. You don't. What would you say? That you lived through another battle, that you're fine, that your hands shake every time a branch snaps, that your best friend's face is gone and you still see it every time you blink? No, you just keep walking, because the war doesn't stop. It doesn't pause for breath. It doesn't care who you were before or what you dreamed about or whether you believed in anything at all. It just asks one question: can you keep marching? And you do, because that's all that's left. You used to think war was about swords and honor. You thought a rifle was a rifle and the bayonet just something you fixed for show. You thought artillery was about smoke in the distance. You didn't understand. Not really. Not until the mini ball hit the man beside you and turned his chest inside out like a popped fruit. That sound, not like thunder, not like cracking wood. It's a thick, wet thwack followed by the gasp or the silence. You don't know what's worse. The sound of a man realizing he's dying, or the sudden stillness of the ones who die so fast they don't make a sound at all. The mini ball. It's conical, heavy, soft lead. It doesn't cut through flesh. It shatters bone. It tumbles, spins, tears. You see wounds that don't just pierce. They rip apart. Arms dangling by threads. Legs split in half. A man gets hit in the hip and dies screaming because there's no fixing what's broken when it breaks that deep. You were issued one too, of course. The Springfield rifle, long, awkward, heavy. You trained with it for hours. Load, ram, prime, fire, all under pressure. You know it takes 20 seconds if you're good, 30 if you're not. And that's a long time when someone's aiming at your head. You learn to move fast, to not fumble the paper cartridge, to keep your powder dry. You sleep with it. You clean it with torn shirts and spit, and you carry it into the line knowing what it can do, what it has already done, what it will do again. But it's not just the bullet that kills, it's what happens when the bullet misses. Because then the bayonet comes out. They told you it was rare, that most men die from bullets, not blades. They said the bayonet charge was mostly for fear, mostly for show. They lied. You've seen what happens when two lines close the distance. The muskets fire once, maybe twice, then it's all hands and metal, men screaming, faces twisted in rage or panic, bayonets thrusting wildly. Sometimes it misses, sometimes it glances off a belt buckle, but when it lands hard. There's nothing elegant about it. It's not a clean stab, not like the duels you imagined, or the fencing moves you saw boys practice in the yard. This is a spike of steel through soft flesh, through a stomach, through a throat, and then the twist, the pull, the sickening resistance of a body that doesn't want to die, and you do it, because if you don't, they will. You remember your first time, you can't forget it. The face of the man, the look in his eyes, the way his hands grabbed at your sleeves like he wanted to beg or maybe drag you down with him. You don't even remember how deep you pushed, just the heat of it, the sudden wet, the silence that followed. You didn't eat for 2 days after that. Now you eat like nothing happened. But if the rifle and the bayonet are personal, then artillery is the opposite. It's distant, impersonal, random, and it's the worst of all. You never see it coming. You just hear the whistle, then the explosion, then nothing, or screaming, or the sound of someone sobbing and asking where their arm went. You learn to fear the booming, the thunder that shakes your spine. Not just because of the noise, but because of what it brings. A shell hits a trench and a dozen men vanish. Legs here, a hand there. Faces you knew turn to ash. You find shreds of uniform embedded in trees. You find bones in your rucksack. The ground is never still. The air smells like sulfur and blood. You start to flinch at every loud sound. A dropped pan, a crack of lightning, a man coughing too hard. Your nerves are threadbare. You can't explain it to someone who wasn't there. You try sometimes, in letters, but how do you describe the way a cannonball rolls through a line of men like a bowling ball through pins? How do you explain the way a mortar shell lands in a cook fire and turns a meal into a funeral? You just say, the artillery was bad today, and hope that's enough. Sometimes you see it coming. The enemy setting up the guns on the far hill, the gunners adjusting elevation. You want to run, you want to hide. But you don't. You hold your ground. Because that's the order. You've seen what happens to men who run. A cannon doesn't care if your back is turned, and when your own side fires, that's no better. The recoil of the gun, the screaming command, the jolt through your boots when the piece goes off, it all becomes part of your body. You feel it in your teeth, in your bones, in your nightmares. They say the Civil War was the last old war and the first modern one. You believe it, because the weapons are ancient, brutal, up close. But the carnage, they've never seen anything like it. Not before, not on this scale. Trenches full of bodies, hills slick with blood, trees stripped bare by shrapnel, men wandering blind and deaf, shell-shocked, long before anyone had a name for it. You start to envy the ones who die instantly, the clean kills, the headshots, the ones who don't feel anything. Because you've seen what it's like to survive with half a face, or with no legs, or with burns so deep the skin falls off in sheets. And you wonder, how did we let it come to this? You were promised glory, you were promised courage and righteousness. But all you found are tools of suffering, objects designed not to win, but to destroy. And they work. God, do they work? You carry your rifle like it's part of you now. You know every scratch, every groove. You clean it even when it doesn't need cleaning. You whisper to it sometimes, like it's alive, like it hears you. You sleep beside it, eat beside it, march with it, kill with it. And yet, despite everything, there's still fear because all it takes is one shot, one cannon, one shell. You see a man running, then he's gone. Just like that. No warning, no drama. Gone. You stop asking how many died today. You stop counting. You stop caring about names because names mean pain. You focus on the metal, on the next target, on the drill, load, ram, prime, fire, bayonet, thrust, twist, pull, cannon, aim, elevate, fire, repeat, repeat until nothing is left. And when the battle ends, you walk through the wreckage like a ghost. You step over shattered muskets, over sabers bent like wire, over boots still full of feet. You stare at the cannon mouths, silent now, and wonder when they'll speak again. You no longer wonder why you fight. You wonder how you keep fighting, because the weapons are misery. They are suffering in metal form, and they never run out of work. At some point, the idea crosses your mind. Maybe it's after the third battle, or maybe it's after the 50th corpse you've helped bury. It slips in like a whisper, quiet at first, almost innocent. What if you just walked away? Not toward the enemy, just away, into the woods, into the hills, into anywhere but here. You think about the road that runs behind the camp, about how dark it gets at night, how thin the picket line feels when the guards are tired. You wonder how far you'd get if you started walking and never stopped, maybe back to a farm, a town, a face you used to love, but the thought stays locked behind your teeth because everyone else has thought it too, and some have tried. You remember the first one, a boy from Ohio, barely more than 16, always writing letters, always polishing his boots. One morning, he was just gone. No word, no trace. Maybe he couldn't take the noise, or the lice, or the smell of rot. Maybe he just missed his mother. 3 days later, they dragged him back, found him in a barn not far from the last camp, half-starved and shivering. They said he cried when they caught him, said he begged, said he offered to work latrine duty for the rest of the war. They didn't care. They made everyone line up, made us watch. He stood, trembling, blindfolded, coat buttoned wrong. Maybe he thought he'd get clemency. Maybe he thought they wouldn't shoot a boy. He was wrong. 12 rifles rose. 1 fired a blank. 11 didn't. He collapsed like a sack of wet flour. The captain said nothing afterward, just dismissed us, and we all went back to eating spoiled beans and trying not to vomit. After that, desertion changed. It wasn't just fear, it was shame, not just of being shot, but of making others do the shooting, of knowing one day you might have to be on that firing line, that the man tied to the post could have been your tent mate, or your cousin, or you. Still, men tried. Some were caught sneaking out of camp with their boots hidden under their coats. Some tried disguises, Union blues turned inside out, buttons torn off. One man wrapped himself in a blanket and crawled like a wounded dog toward the riverbank. He didn't make it. None of them do. Because the war doesn't let go. The rules are clear. Leave your post and you'll be hunted. They'll send men after you, not because they care about you, but because they can't afford to let it spread. One deserter turns into 2, then 10, then 100. Morale is a glass jar, and once it cracks, it's gone. So they keep the fear alive. Executions become routine, formal, efficient, a priest, a drum roll, a list of charges read aloud while the condemned stares at the dirt. They say things like cowardice in the face of the enemy or dereliction of duty, fancy phrases for men who couldn't take the screaming, or the maggots in the bread, or the way their hands shook after watching a friend's face come apart under cannon fire. You see them as they march to the post. Some walk tall, others stumble. One kissed his wedding ring before they blindfolded him. One spat at the officer's boots. One pissed himself in front of the whole regiment. It doesn't matter. The result is always the same. Boom, boom, boom. Sometimes it takes more than one volley. Sometimes they don't die clean. And then someone has to go up and finish the job. You learn to stop flinching. You learn to keep your face blank. Because what else is there? If you cry, you're weak. If you laugh, you're broken. So you stand there like a statue, letting the blood soak into the earth just inches from your feet. You start to understand why some men take their own lives instead. A musket barrel in the mouth, a knife to the gut, a rope thrown over a tree limb at night. At least it's their choice. At least no one claps for it. But even that becomes hard, because there's no privacy, no quiet, no safe place to fall apart. The war wants all of you, even the pieces you try to hide. You tell yourself you're brave for staying. That cowardice is turning your back. But that line blurs, because you've seen brave men scream when they're wounded. You've seen cowards drag bleeding comrades back through gunfire. You've seen officers wet themselves before battles and still order the charge. You start to believe it's not about bravery at all. It's about endurance, how long you can keep walking, keep loading, keep eating filth and pretending it's food. Command doesn't care. The generals up the chain don't see the rot in your boots or the sores on your gums. They care about numbers, units, movement. You're not a man to them. You're a shape with legs and a rifle. If you fall, they'll replace you. If you break, they'll bury you, so you stay. Not because you believe in it, not because you're loyal, but because fear is stronger than hunger and shame is heavier than a musket. You see the looks, the hollow eyes, the way men flinch when an officer walks past, the way they whisper when someone disappears. No one speaks his name afterward. It's like he never existed. That's the real punishment, not the bullet, the erasure. But the war grinds on, and the machine needs bodies. So they conscript more, draft more, force more. Boys, old men, drunks, lunatics. They feed them into the furnace, and out comes smoke. The ones who try to climb out, they're crushed. Some men fight because they believe in the cause. Some fight because they're told to. Most fight because they're afraid of what happens if they don't. You realize this one night when you're on watch, staring into the woods, your rifle heavy in your hands. You hear a branch snap, a shape moving between trees. Not enemy, not animal, a man. He steps out, dirty, gaunt, wild-eyed. He lifts his hands. You should shout, should raise your gun. You don't. Because he's not the enemy. He's you if you had walked. He says nothing, just stands there, waiting, and you do the only thing you can. You nod. He nods back, then turns and disappears into the dark. You never tell anyone, because he was already dead the moment he left, just like the rest of you, only slower, and when the next execution is ordered, you watch like everyone else. You count the rifles and wonder, just for a moment, if yours will be the one with the blank. You sit on a stump or maybe a half-rotten log with a stub of charcoal or a dull pencil between your fingers. You balance the paper on your knee. It's been folded, unfolded, sweat-stained, half-torn, but it's the only sheet you've got. You take a deep breath and start with the same words every time. Dear, and then you stop. Sometimes you don't know who to write to anymore. You try your wife. You picture her standing in the doorway of the house, apron dusted in flour, watching the horizon. Or your mother, old now, hands knotted from farm work, still saving your childhood toys in a drawer you'll never see again. Or your brother, or the girl who promised to wait, but maybe she doesn't. Maybe she married the boy who ran the store, the one who didn't enlist. Maybe she doesn't even think of you now. You don't know. You write anyway, because the letter isn't just for them, it's for you. A lifeline scratched in graphite across a dirty page, a way to prove, to remind you're still human, still more than a sack of bones marching to the next killing field, still more than a number in some colonel's report. You don't write about blood, not the kind that splashes your boots or the kind that drips from a friend's lips while he dies calling for his mother. You don't write about the lice or the sickness or the sounds men make in the middle of the night when they think no one's listening. You don't write about the executions or the smell of bodies rotting in the sun. You write about the weather. You write that you're fine, even when you're not, especially when you're not. Sometimes you lie outright. You say you're eating well, that the captain is kind, that morale is high, that the war will be over soon, that you'll be home by Christmas. You say you still have your coat, even if it's been taken. You say you're still healthy, even when your gums bleed when you chew. Because what else is there to say? If you tell the truth, they'll worry. If you lie, they'll hope. Hope is better. The letter goes into a sack, or into the hand of a courier or a field chaplain with a promise that it will go out next week. You know it might not. The mail gets lost, stolen, burned, carried off by a horse shot mid-gallop. Sometimes it just disappears like so many other things in this war. You wait anyway. You wait days, weeks, sometimes months, and then, if you're lucky, it comes. Folded, smudged, smelling faintly of lavender or chimney smoke or home. You stare at it before you open it, because for just a moment, it's not a letter. It's a tether, a thin string tying you to something that still makes sense. A world where words are soft, not screamed, where people know your name not because it's listed on a casualty roll, but because they've said it aloud with love. You open it with shaking hands. You read it twice, then again. You memorize it. You fold it and unfold it so many times the creases tear. You trace the handwriting with your thumb. You sleep with it under your coat. Some men cry, quietly when no one's looking. Others don't even blink, just sit there like stone while their eyes scan the loops and lines of someone else's world. You read about crops, about church sermons, about who married who. You read about how your dog still waits at the door, about how your daughter learned to walk, about how your mother lights a candle for you every night. Sometimes there's a pressed flower inside, sometimes a lock of hair, sometimes just the words, "Come back," and then it's over, just like that. One piece of paper, 15 lines, and a silence afterward that feels like drowning. Because now you know what you're missing. Now the loneliness has teeth. You carry the letter with you, through battles, through marches. You fold it in your pocket or tuck it in your boot or hide it in the lining of your haversack. You don't want it to get wet. You don't want it to tear. You read it until it's memorized, and then you read it again. But not everyone gets letters. Some wait and wait and wait, and nothing comes. You see it in their eyes, the slow hollowing, the gnawing doubt. Maybe she stopped writing. Maybe the house burned. Maybe the whole town is gone. Maybe they just stopped remembering. Maybe you've already died in their hearts. One man sat by the fire every night for weeks, waiting, always asking if the mail had come, always hoping. When it finally did and his name wasn't called, he didn't say a word, just walked out of camp, no gun, no pack. They found him the next day, face down in a ditch, still alive. But something had gone missing inside him. Another man got a letter with only one sentence. Your wife is dead. He didn't speak for 4 days. Then he tried to strangle the corporal in the mess line. You start to fear the letters as much as you need them. They can lift you, but they can also crush you. Because home moves on without you, and the war makes you a ghost long before it kills you. There's a kind of mourning that doesn't wait for a funeral. You feel it when the mail call ends and your name isn't on the list. You feel it when the letter comes with a black border. You feel it when the words say, "We miss you," but the ink says, "We've moved on." You watch men read words that change them forever. One fell to his knees, clutching the paper like it was a wound. Another folded his letter slowly, carefully, and then threw it into the fire. You think about burning yours, just to stop needing it, but you don't. Because as long as that letter exists, so do you. You try to write back, even if your fingers are numb, even if the rain ruins the paper. You find a dry scrap, you sharpen the charcoal, you say you're still fighting, you say you're still whole. You don't say that the last time you saw your reflection, you didn't recognize the man in the water. You don't say you've forgotten the sound of your daughter's laugh. You don't say you wake up every night screaming, only to find the scream was silent and still stuck in your throat. You just say, "I miss you," and hope that's enough. And when the mail doesn't come at all, you lie to yourself. You tell yourself it's delayed, that the courier was killed, that the horse threw a shoe, that the weather turned, that the bridge washed out, that there's a letter on its way right now, that it will arrive tomorrow. You need to believe it. Because if the letters stop, the war wins. Not with bullets, but with silence. You hold on to the words like a lifeline. You read them in the trenches. You whisper them in your sleep. You carry them into battle like a shield that can't stop anything, but still means something. And when another man receives his letter and can't bear to read it, he hands it to you, says, "You read it." So you do. Your voice is hoarse, your throat dry, but you read each line like it's scripture, because for that moment, the war isn't everything. For that moment, you remember why you're still breathing. And when you finish, he doesn't thank you, just nods, just folds the letter, just tucks it into his chest like a talisman, and turns his face to the sky, waiting for the next mail, waiting for the next whisper from the world beyond the smoke and the mud and the screams. At first, it's just tiredness. The kind that wraps around your bones and doesn't let go, a weight behind the eyes, a stiffness in your neck. You tell yourself it's normal. Everyone's tired, everyone's sore, everyone looks like they haven't slept in a week because none of you have. But then the tiredness doesn't go away. Even when you sleep, it clings to you like sweat. Your dreams aren't dreams anymore. They're replays, the crack of rifles, the screaming, the sound of blood hitting dirt. You wake up with your hands clenched, your breath short, heart hammering against your ribs like it's trying to escape your chest. And then come the shakes, not always violent. Sometimes it's just a twitch in the hand, a stutter in your step. You lift your coffee and spill half of it. Your fingers won't stop trembling, not from cold, not from hunger, from something deeper. Some men hide it. They dig their nails into their palms to keep steady. They bite their tongues until they bleed. Anything to seem normal, anything to avoid the questions. Others don't even try. One morning, a man refuses to get up, just stares at the canvas above his cot, eyes wide open, not blinking. When the sergeant yells, he doesn't move. When they drag him out, he pisses himself and starts laughing. High, brittle laughter that doesn't stop for hours. They tie him up and send him to the rear. He never comes back. Another sits by the latrines for 2 days, mumbling to himself, counting, over and over, not numbers, names, all the ones he saw die. You start to wonder when it'll be you, because no one escapes. Some just hold it in longer. The noise is the worst, not just the gunfire, the echoes, the phantom cracks that follow you even when you're alone. You flinch at slammed doors. You dive for cover when a wagon wheel snaps. One night, thunder rolls across the valley and half the camp hits the ground, covering their heads like they're under bombardment. No one laughs about it afterward. No one speaks about it at all. Because if you start talking, you might not stop. You might start remembering too much. The face of the boy whose jaw vanished in a blast. The eyes of the friend who bled out whispering his mother's name. The smell of burnt flesh. You can't carry all of it, so you don't. You bury it. You dig a hole somewhere inside yourself and shove it all in, and you keep digging, every day a little deeper. But one day the hole fills, and then there's nowhere left to hide. You cry without knowing why. You find yourself sobbing over spilled rations, over a snapped shoelace, over a letter that says nothing but, "We miss you." The tears come hot and fast, and you wipe them away quickly before anyone sees. Because this isn't a place for tears. This is a place for silence, for discipline, for pretending. So you pretend. You smile when someone tells a joke. You nod when the officer speaks. You clean your weapon like it matters. But inside, something's cracking. Some nights, you lie awake staring at the stars, and you wonder if your mind is slipping, if you'll still be you when this ends, if you'll ever laugh and mean it again. One man digs trenches obsessively, even when there's no battle coming, even when the ground is frozen. He says it makes him feel safe. He won't sleep above ground anymore. He eats in the dirt, sleeps in the dirt, lives in the dirt. They call him Mole. But no one stops him, because deep down they understand. Another man refuses to speak for weeks, not a word, just gestures, just stares. They test him, they yell at him, nothing. Then one day during a march, a shell explodes nearby, and he starts screaming. Not words, just sound. High, loud, unbearable, like something ripped open inside him and never closed again. They say he's cracked, but truth is, he just got there first. Everyone's on that path. Some drink themselves into numbness. Some volunteer for the worst missions just to end it. Some write letters home they never intend to send. Apologies, confessions, goodbyes. You catch yourself thinking things you never thought before. How easy it would be to walk into enemy fire. How simple to fall asleep and not wake up. How peaceful silence might be if it were permanent. But you don't tell anyone, because what would they say? The officers don't have words for it. There's no name for what's eating you alive. No diagnosis, no treatment, no sympathy. Just orders. Keep marching, keep fighting, keep dying. And if you break, you're weak. That's the story, that's the lie. So you keep pretending, because it's safer that way. You see the same story play out again and again. A man who was steady one day is twitching the next. A sharpshooter who once bragged about his kills can't pick up his rifle. A drummer boy with a voice like honey stops speaking entirely. And no one talks about it, because to name it is to risk catching it. Like a sickness, you pass men in camp who stare right through you. Eyes blank, shoulders hunched, fingers twitching, not sick enough to send away, not sane enough to stay, just stuck, like ghosts who haven't figured out they're dead yet. You think maybe that's what the war is doing, turning you into a ghost before your body knows it. You're here, but not, moving, but hollow. And when you look in the mirror, if you're lucky enough to find one, you don't recognize the eyes staring back. Not anymore. You try to anchor yourself. A letter, a keepsake, a song. But even those start to lose meaning. The words blur, the memories fade. You forget what your sister's voice sounds like, what home smelled like, what peace feels like. One night you wake up choking. There's no smoke, no fire, just your own breath strangling you. You claw at your neck, thinking something's wrapped around it, but it's just panic. Just fear, just the war finding new ways to eat you alive. You sit up, try to calm down, try to slow your heart, but it takes hours. And in the morning, you say nothing, because what is there to say? You survived another night, but you're not sure if that's a good thing. Sometimes you think about going mad, really mad. The kind of mad that gets you sent away. You wonder if that would be mercy. But even madness isn't safe, because men come back from the rear changed. Worse, quieter, or louder in the wrong ways, and some don't come back at all, disappeared into institutions or graves. So you stay, you breathe, you march, you flinch, and no one notices because they're too busy flinching too. You start to count the ones who are still whole. There aren't many, a handful maybe. The rest, shattered in ways that can't be seen. Not yet, but soon. It's coming for everyone. And deep down, the war doesn't end when the shooting stops. It ends when there's nothing left of you worth breaking. The uniform fits tighter, not because it's smaller, but because it comes with a weight the others don't feel. When you're a black soldier, you wear more than wool and buttons. You wear history. You wear the chains of what you were. You wear the eyes of white comrades who don't think you belong. You wear the stares of men who would rather see you dead than armed. You wake up in a different kind of war, not just North against South, not just blue against grey, but a war against doubt, against hate, against centuries. Even among those on your own side, trust is scarce. You hear the mutters, the jokes, the silences that stretch too long when you enter the tent. You're issued the same rifle, but not the same pay. You bleed the same red, but your name isn't carved into the same marble. Yet still, you stand in formation. Still, you drill. Still, you march. Because the enemy isn't just across the field. The enemy is in the air, in the past, in every order barked a little too sharply, in every glance that says, you don't belong, but you do. You've earned this place 10 times over, even before the first shot is fired. You train harder. You know you must. Mistakes cost you more. Cowardice isn't just shame, it's proof to those who want you gone. And so you don't flinch. You don't hesitate. You hold the line while others falter. Because you're not just fighting for country, you're fighting for recognition, for dignity, for the right to be seen as a man. The rations are worse if they come at all. The boots are second-hand, the quarters colder, the gear lighter, the respect nearly absent. And yet, still, you fight. When the time comes and the order is given, you charge. You charge knowing capture might not mean a prison camp, but a rope and a tree. You charge knowing the men beside you may not mourn you. You charge because behind you stands not just your unit, but your people, and they are watching, hoping, praying, because every step you take is history being written with blood and courage. You don't get statues, not yet. You don't get songs, but you do get eyes, wide eyes, disbelieving, as you fix a bayonet and storm a trench, as you scale a hill under fire, as you hold the line against men who would rather die than lose to someone like you. You see them hesitate because they thought you were less, they thought wrong, and still, it's not over. You hear it in the letters from home, how your wife was spit on for wearing your uniform, how your children are mocked, how your father still can't vote. You carry those words like ammunition, each one a reason to fight harder. And when the bullets start flying, you don't duck. You advance, because this is your chance, not just to survive, but to matter. You march with men who don't say your name. You camp in places where you're not allowed inside the house. You fight for a flag that hasn't decided if it loves you or just needs you. But still, you fight. Not for glory. That was never promised. Not for medals. Those go elsewhere. You fight for the man beside you if he lets you. And if he doesn't, you fight anyway. You fight because maybe, just maybe, when the smoke clears, the country will remember. You fight because your freedom is not a gift, it's a claim. There are moments, brief and shining, where the lines break and the men break with them. A white soldier sees you drag his friend to safety and says nothing, just nods. That nod is everything. It's not approval, it's not acceptance, but it's something. And sometimes that's all you get. You lose friends. Black men whose names won't be carved into books, who won't be spoken of in speeches, who will be buried in shallow graves with no stone. But you remember them. You remember the man who carried powder while wounded, the one who took a bullet meant for the captain who never once spoke his name, the drummer boy who beat the rhythm while bleeding from the belly. You remember because someone must. Some survive the battle only to die in silence, discharged, discarded, forgotten. They limp home to neighborhoods that still call them boy. They hang their medals on walls that sag with poverty. They tell stories to sons who grow up learning that heroism comes with a footnote. And yet, you do it again, because you were there, because you proved them wrong. Not just the Confederates, but the country itself. You showed what a black man could do with a rifle, a backbone, and a cause. You showed them courage isn't white, and freedom doesn't come with conditions. In camp, you cook with the others, if they let you. You pray with your own, because that's safer. You sing, because your voice is the only warmth some nights. Spirituals by the fire, hymns under the stars, songs that carry the weight of generations. And when battle comes again, you rise. Every step forward is defiance. Every shot fired is justice. Every breath taken under that sky is one they tried to keep from you, and you take it anyway. You were told this war wasn't about you, but you know better. It was always about you. Because without your freedom, what is the Union? What is victory if it doesn't include your name? The world may not write your story, but it was yours to begin with. You made it through, scarred, maybe, but unbroken. And when the last cannon falls silent, you don't drop your rifle. You stand taller, because you did something most men can't. You fought 2 wars and survived both. The guns stop, the flags fall, the last commands echo into silence, and still you don't move. Peace is supposed to be a moment, a line crossed, a final breath of relief. But when it comes, it doesn't feel like peace. It feels like a pause between nightmares, a break before something worse. You walk away from the war, but it doesn't walk away from you. Your boots are rotted. Your uniform is stained with years of sweat and blood. You haven't seen your own face in a mirror in so long. You're not sure what it looks like anymore. You know you're older, even if you don't look it. Your eyes feel hollow. Your hands don't stop shaking. You flinch at sudden noises. Hooves on wood, thunder over the hills, a shout in the distance. You tell yourself it's over, but you don't believe it. You're given a piece of paper, a small payment, and a pat on the back, if you're lucky. Thank you for your service. As if those words can fill the spaces inside you that were blasted open in the mud and smoke. As if that's enough for the friends you buried or the parts of you that never made it back. And then you go home. But home is not what you remember, if it's there at all. Some return to ashes, burnt houses, collapsed barns, a field that once held crops now scattered with bones, no livestock, no tools, just silence and ruin. Others come back to cities they no longer understand, streets crowded with strangers, factories that boomed during the war, now quiet, locked, or filled with men who never left. And some come home to nothing, no family, no land, no name on the town register. Just a war-worn body and a vague sense of direction. You look for familiar faces, but they look through you. Your mother's hair is white now. Your sister doesn't recognize your voice. Your girl married someone else. You try to smile, to pretend, but even your smile doesn't fit anymore. You sit at the dinner table and the food tastes like nothing. You sleep in a real bed and still wake gasping, hand reaching for a rifle that isn't there. You go to church and can't hear the hymns over the memory of cannon fire. Everyone else has moved on. They talk about crops and elections, about the new president, about how the South must be rebuilt, about Lincoln's death, sudden, brutal, final, as if the war needed one last twist of the knife. You listen, nod, say little, because what would you say? That some part of you died out there and never came back, that peace feels like a lie, that you wish, sometimes quietly, that you hadn't made it. No one wants to hear that. They want stories of glory, of courage, of waving flags and noble sacrifice. They don't want to hear about the screams in the woods, about the flies that swarmed open wounds, about the boy from your company who begged to be shot after the mortar took his legs. So you say nothing. You go to the fields if you have them. Try to plow, try to sow, but your back isn't what it was. Your knees groan, your hands ache. You're 20-something maybe, but feel 60. And in the back of your mind, you keep expecting the war to call you back. You see uniforms on the street and tents. You hear boots on wood and freeze. Some of your old company try to gather. They call it a reunion. They meet at the tavern, drink, laugh, cry sometimes. You go once, but the laughter sounds too loud, the tears too quiet, the stories watered down, polished, safe for public ears. You don't go again. You meet other veterans on the road, some whole, some limping, some drunk before noon. A few wear their old jackets like armor, sleeves torn, buttons dulled by time. Others burn theirs. You see one man sitting by the roadside talking to someone who isn't there. His voice low, tender, repeating a name. You know better than to interrupt. You pass freedmen walking barefoot down dusty roads, heads high, eyes alert. Some carry papers, proof of freedom. Others carry nothing but scars. You nod when they pass. Sometimes they nod back. No one speaks. There's too much between the words. You try work, any work, farmhand, porter, mail courier, but the rhythm of labor can't cover the silence inside you. At night, the dreams return. Sometimes the battlefield, sometimes the camp, sometimes just blackness and the sound of marching feet. You wake up sweaty, heart racing, and realize you're alone again. You write letters you never send, to friends who are dead, to officers who never knew your name, to yourself. You start one with, I survived, then stop. Did you? Did anyone? The world around you is trying to heal, but it heals like a bone set wrong, crooked, stiff, aching in the rain. The South simmers, the North forgets. Black men build churches from rubble and are met with fire. Women stitch flags and bury sons. Children play war with wooden rifles, shouting names they don't understand. And you watch, on the porch, in the field, at the edge of the town square. You sit and try to feel something, but the war took that too. You hear people say, he made it back, as if that's all there is to it, as if survival was the same as being whole. They don't see the way you count every shadow, the way you touch your chest when a bird startles, the way you keep track of exits in every room. Some days, you forget where you are. Others, you remember too much. A sound, a smell, a word, and you're back in the trench, or in the hospital tent, or on the long road home, surrounded by corpses too fresh to be forgotten. You walk past a group of children playing and hear one shout, charge! You stop walking just for a moment. Your legs forget they're safe. You breathe in, slow, steady. It passes, but it always comes back. There are moments, brief, bright, when you feel almost human again. The taste of clean water, the smell of baking bread, a song played from a back porch, a dog lying in the sun. And for a second, just a second, you think maybe. Then the wind shifts. And it's gone. You don't talk about it, because the people around you want the war to be over. They want parades and medals and tidy endings, not men who jump at thunder, not ghosts who still breathe. You're not a soldier anymore. You're not really anything, just a man walking through a broken country, trying to remember what it means to live, and failing most days. But you keep walking, because maybe, if you walk far enough, you'll find something that feels like peace. Even if it's just a quiet corner, a patch of grass, a place where the past can't follow, where the dead don't whisper, where your hands stop shaking and your breath comes easy. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough, because the war may be over, but you're still here, and that has to mean something. Let's be honest, you wouldn't have made it, not because you're soft, not because you lack courage, but because this war, this brutal, grinding, soul-eating war, wasn't built for survival. It wasn't designed for endurance or heroism. It was designed to chew men up, crush them, and spit out what was left into shallow graves or broken homes. From the moment you opened your eyes on that lice-ridden straw mattress, you were already dying. The air carried disease. The food was poison. The water was a gamble. The very ground beneath your feet was soaked with blood and rot. Every breath was borrowed. Every sunrise a surprise. Could you have lasted the hunger? The kind of hunger that doesn't growl but gnaws, slow, steady, whispering in your bones. The kind where you trade dignity for a crust of bread, where salt pork smells like spoiled grease and still feels like a feast. Where men dream not of victory or peace, but of beans, warm beans, just once. Could you have handled the silence, not the absence of sound, but the kind of silence that falls after a skirmish, when the smoke clears and you count who's missing, when the only thing louder than the quiet is the pounding in your own skull, asking, why him, why not me, or the noise, the thunder of cannon, the crack of musket fire, the shrieks of horses and men twisted in pain. You think you'd be brave, you think you'd charge when ordered, but would your legs move when the air turns black and men start dropping like wheat before the scythe? Would you hold the line when the boy beside you takes a round through the chest and falls face first into the mud, gasping, drowning in red? Would you have endured the march? 20 miles, no shoes, mud up to your knees, blisters splitting open, rain one day, heat stroke the next. A knapsack that carves your shoulders like a knife. A rifle that drags behind you like dead weight. And always the drumbeat, left, right, until your feet forget how to stop. Could you have kept your sanity in camp? When the boredom becomes unbearable, when the letters stop coming, when the laughter dies down and there's nothing left but the stink of sweat, rot, and unwashed skin. When you haven't bathed in weeks, your gums bleed from scurvy, and the man in the cot next to you is coughing blood onto his own hands. When the jokes are darker, the silence is longer, and the only relief is tobacco or prayer. What about the first kill? Could you have pulled the trigger, looked down the barrel at another boy, not much different from you, and fired anyway? Could you have watched him fall, body twitching, eyes wide and searching for something he wouldn't find? Could you have lived with that memory curling inside your chest like smoke that never clears? You say yes, but then the second one comes, and the third, and by the 10th, you don't even look. You reload like it's a routine. You shoot without aiming. You step over bodies like logs in the forest. You eat beside corpses because there's no time to move them. Could you carry that? Could you have stood in the field hospital? The stink of blood, sawdust on the ground, limbs in piles, screams that don't stop. No anesthesia, just leather to bite and whiskey to dull the edge. Could you have watched a surgeon saw through a femur while flies gathered on the wound? Could you have been the one lying there, begging to be put under, knowing no one would? Would you have lasted the prison, captured, stripped, thrown into a pit with hundreds of others? No food, no water, rats gnawing on the toes of the dead, men killing for scraps of spoiled meat, typhus, cholera, dysentery. The guards don't care. You're not a soldier to them. You're rot, waste, one more number to die before the sun sets. Could you have endured the hatred, not just from the enemy, but from your own side? If you were black, if you were poor, if you had the wrong accent, the wrong skin, the wrong god, could you have fought for a country that didn't even want to call you a man? Could you have stood shoulder to shoulder with men who didn't want you there and still taken the bullet meant for them? And then the worst part, the return. The war ends, but nothing feels right. You don't feel right. You walk into town and the buildings are familiar, but the people are not. They smile at you like you're a stranger. Your house is gone. Your brother is dead. Your wife remarried. You shake hands with someone who thanks you for your service and you want to scream, for what? For who? You try to work, but your hands tremble. You try to sleep, but the dreams return. You try to smile, but your mouth forgets how. Could you have lived in that space? Half alive, half dead, a ghost in your own skin. You want to say yes, that you'd have survived, that you'd have found a way. But survival wasn't the point. Endurance wasn't rewarded. The war didn't care about your heart, your mind, your willpower. It broke the strongest, crushed the brightest, silenced the kindest. It didn't test your bravery. It tested how much you could lose before you stopped being human. And most didn't pass. Some went mad, some went numb, some just didn't wake up one morning. Heart stopped, soul gone, body done. So no, you wouldn't have lasted a day, not because you're weak, but because you're human. And this war asked men to become something else entirely, to become machines that bled, shadows that walked, hollow things with muskets, and even the best, especially the best, were never the same again. You wouldn't have survived. Not intact, not whole, but maybe, just maybe, that's the point, to know what was asked, to feel the weight of what they carried, to look at the past not as a story of flags and heroes, but of mud and blood and silence, to respect not the war, but the men who crawled through it, and to know that your life, your soft pillow, your morning coffee, your quiet street was bought by people who lost everything, including themselves. So no, you wouldn't have lasted. But now you understand what it meant to try, and that alone is enough.